The upper echelons. Anyway, I don't see my buddy here yet. Oh, really?
Yep.
Aw.
And
Ooh, dude, I still got boobs. I need an extra large. If you got. Oh.
because our whole message is resilient communities thrive.
Right. All right. Cool beans. Cool. Oh, I'm official. Ooh. All right.
And the young lady back there with the blue hair, wearing one of those shirts, is Terry.
Okay.
She's kind of the right hand in all of this.
Awesome.
Marwan's my left, and you'll be hearing him short.
Okay. Well, I heard that
No, I wasn't. Well, there is the orange one. Was it working? I didn't care about this year. Oh, but Netflix, I don't care. Seems like once the second part.
Google Gopher. All right. Google got it.
If it's out there, I can find it.
I like that.
Way better than any of the college shit.
I guess I just have this slight cynicism that it's not that hard to find, and if it's out there, I don't know. It's not like it.
But there is a filter.
You still good?
I am good. Multitasking for a second.
You know all that cookies they just yucking around the yard and cherries and I don't eat them. Every day was a pie. Yeah, go pick me lucky. Do that and make the ice cream. I don't even like the ice cream.
No.
I eat sherbet every now and then.
Of course, they're purple.
Well, we have other colors too. Do you actually smell it?
I have a very sensitive nose, but I can. It's kind of floral.
She was telling me I need to put more essential oil in it.
I mean, like I said, my nose is very sensitive. But I can smell it. What's in there? What essential oils?
Is it jasmine? It might be jasmine. We're gonna use I like Earl Grey tea. And they like this
Bergamot. Is it bergamot tea?
bergamot. You know? It's like, really? You got essential oil bergamot?
There is. Yes. I have some.
Do you really?
Yeah.
So I was gonna have that be the first one. I'm like, there's probably heard of essential oil bergamot.
Yep. I used to. I still use some young living essential oils. I don't like sell it or anything. I've never sold them. I just put it. Certain ones.
So do you feel like they do different things for you based on what they say?
Yeah, I mean, like I like the ones for like sore muscles, for like when you're having respiratory issues. I use tea tree, lavender, peppermint, those kind of things a lot. But
Tea tree is good for if you have
I mean, there's some people that turn to them for everything, and that's not me. I still use like modern medicine, but for some things, yeah. Yep.
do you believe in it?
Yeah, some of them.
What's good for like inflammation?
Well, the one that I use is called Deep Relief, and it's a roll-on, and so I use that for my sore muscles and stuff.
And that works good.
Yeah.
Then, the one for lavender and
Yep, that's calming. It's very calming. It smells good.
and what is jasmine do?
You know, I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
I think that could be jasmine.
So Mark and I are
I honestly don't remember what I put in. I'm
It
smelling
smells
them
good.
like
I don't know.
I'm trying to find one that most people might like is the first one. And I got this huge pot that can melt multiple. It's the second candle I've ever made. And so like 3 in the morning, like, oh man, I'm getting so tired. They gotta drive 24 hours. I got like some bring in. So hey, these are coming out soon. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Allegedly, it is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Hey, Holly. Can you hear me? Are you on your way? Are you here? Oh, so just come up the stairs and we're in suite 203. You'll hear the music.
Oh, yeah, I've seen him before. Yeah, I like him.
I surely can. Right now. All right.
I've watched
Ernest the monkey. I need you guys to go downstairs and help Holly downstairs and pick up some stuff for a bunch of tests
I gotta change my ringtone. Everybody else has the same ringtones.
Alright. You're just waiting on Mr. Matt. We might have to start without him.
One phone is right out, the other phone is. Way off on the, from the original music, which is about the one glass. Nobody has that. I mean, it's a resource.
Hey guys, if y'all need Wi-Fi, we have free Wi-Fi. It's NHMPS if you need it.
What was the password?
It's there. There is for the
There's no password?
yeah for the free Wi-Fi. You just
Oh, I want to connect to the free Wi-Fi.
there's a splash page, but there's no.
The passwords you make are
Yeah.
too
It's like kind of like when you go to Kaiser, you know. You just have,
Kaiser?
yeah. You ever go to Kaiser?
No, that sounds kind of elitist.
Is this for me? Oh wow. Okay, and you got massage. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I love
You know what I'm
gifts.
saying?
Yep.
I don't know.
I won't mind.
Whenever you're at, the Four Seasons,
Yeah, maybe Saturday.
I didn't even have
I'll have it on for the show.
Okay.
Hi,
I'm Michael.
I'm Marlena. Kitsap Strong.
I'm with Verizon.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Jill and Katie, you guys want to come on down? We'll go ahead and get started, and we will wait on, just let Matt jump in. Some folks will have to go.
You okay?
Huh?
You okay?
Yeah. I'm a little tired. I had a very busy week last week, and I'm still just like.
A lot of that going around.
Yeah. Well, I was in a retreat, an advocacy retreat for 2 days, and then we had a conference Friday, and then it's just like nonstop. So, drained. I'm here. 1 mile direct west of the Fairwood Ranch.
How you been?
Just so where do you want to?
Come on over here. Oh, over there.
It's a podcast day. You're on
Wow.
your
You're on the
show.
hot spot. Oh, no. No, I don't give the answers. I ask questions. So, yeah. If you get a chance, you should go back and look at some of the tipping points and puzzle pieces that Marwan and I did. It is literally the fastest podcast hour ever. We look up and we're done in one, and it's like we're always almost running over because we're not paying attention. We're just into the subject.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have to go back and look
But
at it.
unlike a lot of them, we don't spend our time, rattling people's cages or talking about politics. We're talking about people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ladies have a mic, so you've got a pretty big voice.
All boom along.
You can actually put it on the inside if you don't want people to see it. But this is what it looks like in my house. Have you ever seen Let's do something. Yeah.
I remember when Lori first got hired as a landlord, you all did a live podcast
Mm.
with the landlords.
Yes, at Marvin Wayne.
Yeah.
That was in the very beginning, like
It
last
was
year.
in the very beginning
Yeah.
because there wasn't a live one after that.
Well, right after that COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's what pushed me back into, we were just coming out. That started in February. Then we were like, let's do these podcasts at Marvin Wayne. And then boom, COVID, went back to the house. And now this is the first one. Well, I've done events, but.
And then 9/11, which is when Marwan and I
I
met.
think that's twice. All right. I'm not doing that. Combination of my say, our bad. It was bad. I am dramatic, but it was bad.
I need to go on an event where our kids can eat. How old is your daughter?
She's 10.
My daughter's 11.
Really? Oh, we are going to be doing it. So we're doing things.
A few years ago, I said, well, my daughter babysit, you know, nowadays she works for a tech
This is
company.
our first foray. We will be selling candles to help support the Conduit.
Oh, wow.
So that is
So you'll be making candles?
Yes, we'll be making candles and
Okay,
doing other
yes,
fun
please
things.
tell me about this.
Okay.
Please tell me.
Yeah, we'll be doing stuff.
That's right down my daughter's alley. Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter loves to clap. So her grandmother is already on the side. Some from a small town in Alabama called Keys Bend. And so they're on a national work. They're known for filmmaking. So their mom is close. And they looked at it 2 years ago. It's sold yesterday. My $275. Yeah. Yep.
So we have a lot in common because my mom she has two 12-foot swimming shoes.
Oh, really?
Professional swimmer. Yeah, so, and my daughter is made two quilts as well. So they get along.
Yeah, so so funny. They have these sawhorses. And I mean, they're like hand doing it. It takes months for it. Like, okay.
And they're so beautiful. Did you hear a Pendleton place at each back?
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I missed it. I saw Christina went live, and I caught the tail end of it.
Okay.
I was like, oh, I should have been there to cover that.
Right.
So,
I would thought you would, yeah.
We haven't figured out how to float that yet.
well, one of the things that's going to happen is, so the Rev is building our website and updating our website. We're trying to run the website is going to be the central hub for all information. So right now, you know, Strong does stuff, and DJ does stuff, Pop does stuff, and Kayak does stuff. Everyone does these things, but everyone does these things, and you know, all of these things are on the same page. But all of these things, all the website, okay, you just go there and do everything that's going on. Network.
Yeah.
And then we kind of connect off there.
I think that's needed for the organizations as well, so we don't.
Cross over each other, step on each other's
Right,
toes.
because we're looking to plan things and we don't have a central place to be able to know what's going on those things, right? And so, yeah, to be a good partner.
Hello, Matt.
So yeah, one of the biggest issues is the way our culture
Matt,
is
you are a diva.
makes
We are
being
really
very competitive situation. And that
Do you feel bad, Matt?
No.
So I just finished writing.
Jill is laughing at
Nonprofits, and the fact that nonprofits are considered the solution source for all of.
Oh, well,
But here's the real
not
number.
much you can do.
Out of the gross
I was
domestic
gonna come
product,
to the breakfast.
income, we nonprofits report about 4% of the total income.
All right, we'll see you in
4%
a couple
of the
minutes.
total
You'll have to keep your food on camera.
And yet they're supposed to solve the problems.
You want all the fixes, pancake?
And so look at that, and go, "Oh, so we're going to starve these people to death, make them compete with each other, and nothing will ever get fixed."
We have all
That's
this
all
money
we're
for you. We have no way you're gonna know how to use it, or we're not gonna give it to you, but go use it and fix these problems.
Yeah, and so,
That happened in COVID, right? Because yes, there's money, but there's no.
and yet we knew COVID or something like it was coming every 4 years. that's just insane. It's
So
like,
we are good to go, but we're live now. So,
we are unfortunately doing the same thing over and over again. It's been given out that way. And while Einstein never said it, that is the definition of insanity. So we need to learn how to work with it. We need to talk about how we can raise money for each other and how we can bring people to the table so that we can each bring our strength to the
I
table.
guess I'll wait till the show starts. The good news and update on.
And then we can.
Okay, well,
I just put the press release out to your son. She
Oh, really?
contacted me yesterday.
Oh, she's.
Yeah. She's the same. I actually met her when we were in Pendleton. Oh, did you? Because I knew, I was like, she was walking around taking pictures. And I was like, well, I was fine. I thought I knew her. So I was like, hey, you're the Kitsap son. And hey, she didn't know her son. Oh, nice to meet you. She put that. So she knows housing. She knows housing. She's a real contact for us. I'm so glad we found to really aware about not just private homes. Yeah, we haven't talked about it. I assume so. We haven't talked about it. She was happy to answer the questions. She just wanted to have those information to talk to her. This is like this too. So she responds to it and she researches that and stuff. And I'm trying to find all the information when I think that's hard to have a release and they have to find out. So let's just give them the answers.
Yes, I'm feeling special.
Actually, because then we've already done it.
This is Jill, the Executive Director of the Bremerton Housing Authority, and Katie Sharp, Communications Director. She is from West Treatment Center downstairs. There was a couple questions that they wanted to ask about housing. And if you wouldn't mind, you want to capture it because, everyone would benefit from that. Hi, how you doing?
Skylar, I'm the male housing case manager with What's up?
Oh, so glad that you came up from our one camera. You can have some food.
Oh, are you? I'm good now.
I didn't want to ask some questions. That is Jill and Katie and Mark.
No hard questions.
So I was just hoping to make some notes on resources for our clients.
Yeah.
So everyone can hear.
Okay. We get clients fresh out of jail and fresh out of homelessness that, we need a lot of help.
Yeah.
So I was just up here to see what I can learn about resources.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about our programs if that's helpful.
Okay.
Can we do it on camera?
Yeah, we're on camera, so live.
Okay.
And I have an additional question to that because it's something I saw Fred Jack post this morning. He was talking about the Pendleton house that has 72 apartments, and I knew nothing about that. It kind of surprised me. I hadn't heard anything until I saw a post on Facebook about it. So
Did you see the article in the Kitsap Salem?
I don't read the sign.
Okay, just yeah, the article did. So the Housing Authority, our programs are the Housing Choice Voucher program. So people are typically known as a Section 8 program. So it's where somebody will have a voucher and they're able to take that voucher into the private rental market and use it.
Oh, yes.
So that's our main program that's kind of in the marketplace. We also have public housing. And it's really rented out.
Yeah, we've met like twice.
Yeah.
And
It's still kind of weird. I'm still just like,
and we get subsidized.
it's good. I'm happy credit. I'm glad to be with you.
Really what that means,
I was surprised though,
just things that are affordable.
like 3 full days in person.
The way you access the programs is And our wait list is always definitely requires that website to see on there.
It's kind of like a lottery system to get your name on the list.
So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I just got thrown all into that one.
We used to the section I called house name.
You're traveling through Monday and then holiday Tuesday, half a day Wednesday, so travel back.
Raised only that amount of
Yeah.
summit last month, but we are switching that system to, so it was no longer lottery.
It was so good. I
felt really good after that, and it was just fine. So we're getting with the team, we're missing people come on.
Hey,
so we don't select just 500 or 300 or 600, whatever the number's gonna be. It's just everybody's on that list, they're on in the order that they are.
Sure.
So. And then because of housing, it's kind of that.
Okay, cool.
So have you guys been trying to acquire more housing?
Okay, she said it went well. Good, I'm so glad. She is, she's fantastic. Yes.
Big challenge.
We are very glad to have you as a partner and a trainer.
If we spend our own money, there has to be a return and always want to run out of money. There's not a lot of capital money from HUD, which is our main funder. They support operations, but they're not as supportive of than fund. So we have to look to other sources for that. We need to as possible because the income is always going to be more restricted for our housing. But with that said, we did just purchase 5 brand new homes from the Bay Vista development, which we'll be using to rent preference for voucher holders for those. And then our board just approved on Monday night for us to enter into a contract to get architectural services for 8 units in Bremerton. Yeah, so we're trying.
Yeah.
It's small, but yeah, definitely trying.
What's that? Yeah, how long is the wait list generally?
So generally the wait list is it's as big as how many people we draw. So like the last wait list, we drew 600 people. So the wait list was 600 people. We're gonna right now that's really low. So we're gonna open it back up. When we did the wait list opening last year, we had, was it 2,300?
Yes, I want to make sure that everyone in the room can hear you, because everyone can benefit from that.
Sure.
Agent, if you don't mind, maybe taking a seat there, because you're writing and blocking it. And ladies, I'm going to ask you to speak in, but they're having a hard time.
Is this better? Can you hear me?
Yes, that
Okay.
is much better.
Oh, this no, I can't hear.
Excuse us, we're new to this.
Yeah,
We're
we'll just.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we were just talking about the wait list opening. We're going to be opening either in April or May. We haven't, we have to on our software since we're changing to a new process. And we don't have that set up yet. So as soon as we get that, we'll to advertise when we're opening. But I would say be checking our website because it'll be towards the end of April or May. Do you have anything to add?
And you asked how long the wait list is right now. So yeah, we're still processing from, our applications from August right now. But when we open the wait list, it's pretty low right now. So those who get on will likely, because first we'll have an opportunity to get a voucher sooner than later. Okay. But getting on the wait list doesn't confirm a voucher. It just gets you in the wait list to eligibility.
Is there anything you guys can do in the more immediate term for people coming into our housing?
So there is. I mean, this is actually when I wrote down the topics that I thought we should talk about. So we have what's just our normal wait list. So anybody can apply. There's and you don't, as Kate said, you don't automatically get a voucher, but if you're eligible when your name comes up, we look at all of that.
And if you're eligible, then you'll get a voucher. But the other thing that we can do in the meantime is we can set preferences. So the way the housing authority runs is we have what's called an administrative plan. And in that, every housing authority has to have one. In that plan, you lay out how you're going to administer your program within the guidelines that HUD has. And HUD has a lot of guidelines, and you don't have to choose them all. So you can choose them all, or you can choose what's pertinent for your community. So what we're in the process of doing now is talking to our community, folks, like you and government officials, to see, well, what are the needs in our community as far as vouchers are concerned? So who really needs these vouchers? Is it we can make preferences for people who already have a unit, but they just are rent burdened, and that's called lease in place. We could have preferences for people who are homeless. We could have preferences for people fleeing domestic violence. So what we try to do as the housing authority is talk to the community and find out, well, what are the most vulnerable people in our community, and then we set our preferences so that even when our wait list is closed, if you're on one of those preferences, we can open a smaller wait list for just those preferences. And then we can, if we have the vouchers available, then whoever meets that criteria can apply, and they don't have to wait. Now, while that all sounds like a great idea, and we're big proponents of that, it comes with a bit of controversy, because if you do that, you set those preferences, like, right now we're looking at there's a very large portfolio that was recently sold, and there will be people displaced because of the portfolio was really accommodating very, very low income people. And so one of the things that we're looking at is, should we open one of these preference wait lists so that we can kind of mitigate the risk of this certain population being displaced? And everybody thinks it's a great idea, but on the flip side, and I do too, but on the flip side, that means that somebody that was on that wait list a year ago is now even further behind. So it's really not a decision that the housing authority can make alone. It has to be a community decision. And that's really how we look at the vouchers, is we administer that, and we feel very honored to do that, but they're not our vouchers. These are the community of Bremerton's vouchers. So the community of Bremerton needs to make those decisions. Is that helpful? Yeah, good.
Yes, Ms. Batten. I wanted you to elaborate with us about the Pendleton House. And I'd like to know an individual that is not with the Salvation Army and other organizations that you partner with that already have designated slots there, beds there. How does an individual get on the list when they're not coming from the Salvation Army or another designated organization that has partnered with BHA? Since you guys are running this.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So first of all, Pendleton Place had their ribbon cutting ceremony just this week. They'll be opening probably within 3 weeks. They're still waiting to get their certified occupancy. So Bremerton Housing Authority will be doing the property management. We do not own Pendleton Place. Our involvement, though, is that we not only were involved in the initial funding for the project, but we also are providing vouchers for the program. So, but it's Kitsap Mental Health Services that is actually the general partner in that tax credit partnership. So they are the ones that are initially. So I'm not really. Do you know who the contact person is there?
It's all referrals from the Kitsap Mental Health Services. They
Right.
all come through there. So they are managing the referrals to the wait
No.
list. No.
It's through Housing Solutions
Oh,
Center.
Housing Solutions
Yeah.
Center. It's who, and Matt's here, everybody.
So you can just ask Matt that question now that he's here. But
It's
I
not
know
through
that Bremerton
Bremerton
is not doing the wait list. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so they're pulling, all the referrals come through Housing Solutions Center. So and that's how they pick their first initial batch.
Okay.
Now, again, because of permanent supportive housing, I've talked with Bridget. I don't think, but she's the manager over there at Kitsap Mental Health. I don't think they're expecting huge turnover. So it's not like it's going to be a lot of slots every year that open up. It's probably going to be a few.
Yeah.
And so those are folks that have already come through Housing Solutions Center, and then they pull by vulnerability. So using Housing Solutions Center assessment that we do on any client that comes through KCR, asking for homeless resources or any of our outreach teams or any of our partners that refer in, that's kind of a priority pool list that they pull from.
The Kitsap Mental
Kitsap
Health.
Mental Health. So you're
Okay.
right, they do pull
Okay.
it, but it's from
It's from the
Housing Solutions Center.
initial
Yeah.
housing solution.
Yeah, so you can go to Kitsap Mental Health to ask
That makes
for
sense.
Pendleton Place referral. It's getting connected to Housing Solutions Center, and then Kitsap Mental Health will pull from Housing Solutions Center kind of who's involved in our system right now that's been assessed.
So can any of these organizations, back to our question, can they refer people to the Housing Solutions Center for that project?
Anyone that's experiencing homelessness, we encourage our partners to refer to. Although I would hesitate to advocate or tell clients that I'm going to refer you for Pendleton Place because we don't know that referral will get made. That's Kitsap Mental Health pulls that. And there's limited spots. So again, getting them connected to Housing Solutions Center will open up any of the homeless resources that we have or the ones that we refer to our partners. But we're definitely hesitant to tell partners to say, I'm going to get you on this Pendleton Place list.
Is there a way to get on HS or Housing Solutions Center, or is that
That's the funnel, my understanding. Now that Kitsap Mental Health might change if that's the way they decide to go. Again, like Jill said, Kitsap Mental Health runs the project, and so they're making those decisions. But at least initially, is they're pulling from coordinated entry, which is typically how homeless services get referred. It's through coordinated entry, which is Housing Solutions Center through Kitsap Community Resources.
Does DHA have other programs besides their program? We all at public housing are units that we own, and they're subsidized to at the federal level. Also, will that be open at the same time?
No, it won't be opening at the same time, but there is an application process that you can inquire about at the front desk as well.
Yeah, or on our website.
So I have a curveball. Unfortunately, I spend way too much time reading media. With the Mackenzie Scott donation of $400 and some odd million to Habitat for Humanity, it's not part of what you guys do, but do you have any thoughts about how it's going to benefit our county?
So yeah, that's something that the Housing Authority is not involved in. So I couldn't really answer the question. I believe Housing Kitsap has, which is the Housing Authority for Kitsap County. I think they have a division, but I don't know if it's funded through that.
Okay, because Habitat is the other player in this, really, for housing. And it's kind of like, we talk about the Kitsap Housing Authority, the Bremerton Housing Authority, and all of the resources there, and yet there's Habitat for Humanity as well. And I don't have any sense when people ask me how people would talk to them about that, or what the entry point would be.
Yeah, that might be somebody we would want to have on the podcast. I don't know who runs that.
I knew that Daryl Dodds was the executive director. I don't know who currently is.
Yeah, like what Jill said, we're not currently involved in any existing partnerships or funding streams. So we definitely, I think they have a low-income home building process, but I don't know that. I don't know the details of that.
Yeah.
So that's another thing we need to, Marwan, it's another thing we need to put on the website so that we have a conglomerate, a central point for our information.
Repeat that again.
So including Habitat for Humanity in the discussion, that's another thing that needs to go on the website to be designed so that there's an entry point there so that when people go to get information, that's included.
Okay, I like that. There are quite a few people in the audience. I want to thank everyone for coming out to view the Conduit in person. As you know, we are combining shows. We have a Bremerton Housing Authority and KCR that comes on every Wednesday, and then right after, or now before that, is Resilient Ecosystems. And now that we can kind of be in proximity to each other again, we wanted to, fellowship, and bringing food is one great way to do that. So while we're here, do we have any questions from the audience or comments about
what you think about housing and what's going on. There's a lot of factors that are happening, a lot of uncertainty. You can see we have shout out to Holly from Kitsap Public Health District. Let's go for an applause, right? But in the UK and Hong Kong, the new variant is still rather high. We don't know what's going to happen here. And so she'll be talking to us about tests that she bought and masks. And there are a few people that are wearing masks here now. Definitely want to support everyone's individual choice. I either wear a mask or not wear a mask. But right now, things are looking good, but it may not be that way. Go ahead, Asia.
In case anyone is wondering, we currently have a few open beds in our homeless housing program for West End Treatment Center. And the New Start Women's program is a little different, but we do currently have openings.
If you wouldn't mind, I don't know much about West Sound Treatment Center. Can one of the three of you maybe introduce yourselves and just talk about what is West Sound Treatment Center? I didn't know there were open beds. Can you just kind of give us the rundown?
So you're gonna get the mic no matter what you did.
So my name is Heather Mickey. I am the operations manager at West Lawn Treatment Center, and we do have housing for folks who are coming through the New Start treatment, through New Start program, which is Kitsap County Jail program that we're in there, where folks can get an assessment while they're in jail. You put in a kite and say that they need potential treatment and housing. And so the goal would be that we assess them to see what level of care they might need for drug and alcohol treatment. And then if they need housing, then we have that available for both men and women. Currently, we have female spots. And so they can be in the reentry program for up to 2 years. So if they've come through the Kitsap County Jail and were assessed originally there and still find themselves in need of housing or treatment, it is a requirement that you be in some treatment, with but in general in treatment. And there are some options with that. And then we also have homeless housing, which is folks who fit the definition of homeless, which is 24 hours on the street or in your car, which can be difficult. It can be difficult when somebody says that they're in need and in crisis and in a situation that they need to get out of, but they're not actually technically on the street that day. But so those houses, we have a male house, which currently is full, but the female house has space available. That's women and children, men and children. And I think right now we are definitely in need of applicants. So for West Sound Treatment Center, we have 3 office locations. We're in Paulsbo, Bremerton, and Port Orchard. We are the largest outpatient on the peninsula, and always looking for new clients. So, any questions about housing and how to get in? So I would say if you know anybody who's looking for housing, because it seems to be the big topic, so they can come in person and apply. We will send an application by email. They can apply online at westsoundtreatmentcenter.org, and we're willing to consider anything and everything. The only parameters that would prevent someone is you're not taking sex offenders, you're not taking arsonists, and anything that is truly heinous would be looked at for time frame.
For the audience that is out there, would you mind giving us your phone number, email, and website slowly so we can type it in there in the chat for everyone?
Sure. So my email is heather.hickey@wstcs.org. And our main number to West Sound is 360-876-9430. And my personal number for that office is 360-881-7873. But anybody who called could get information from anybody who's there, is willing to give information out as it's needed. Are they transitional units or permanent?
They are transitional units, yes. So the 2 programs, the way that they're funded currently is the homeless housing project is funded up to 24 months. And so folks should come in, use that first year to become stabilized. They should be working on things like getting their license, getting secure with a doctor, if they need to be on medication, if they need to handle mental health.
all of the things that people come out of homelessness with. I mean, they need everything typically. And then the next year would be spent looking for permanency. So it's going to be breaking down those original barriers and then moving towards stability and permanency in that second year. Our New Start program has half that time. That program is up to 12 months. So in the first 6 months, we're working on license, doctor, medication, whatever you have with treatment in the legal system. And the case managers are charged with readying that person for permanency in the following 6 months. And that can be difficult because everybody comes with different barriers. And currently what we're seeing, I mean, if I'm being honest here, what we're seeing is that with the Blake decision, we're not seeing the same folks coming through. So somebody who's maybe found to have substance on them is not being arrested and taken to the jail and then coming through the program. It's folks who are charged with a little bit more serious crimes that are coming through. And so that has been a challenge for us. And so we're finding workarounds, and for our agency, we're looking to employ a mental health professional and kick off the program. But as I'm sure everyone in the room is aware, the current state of things is very difficult to hire at all levels. So that's kind of where we're at as an agency.
How many open beds do you have?
I think right now at our Women's New Start House, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of, 5 or 6 or something. Yeah, do you want to speak to your openings?
So it would depend on how many were in the family, but I know we have at least 3 different rooms, and altogether maybe 8 beds, 7, depending on how big the family was or how many clients would need to be served. So that's currently where we're at with that for the homeless housing. For New Start, I'm not exactly sure how many altogether we can house.
We're
but
somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, like 8 open beds right now. Yeah, it's been very difficult to get women.
And do they all come through the jail system?
For New Start, they do. Homeless housing, you just are coming from homelessness.
Okay.
That's all I have. You said you wanted us to introduce ourselves, right?
Yes, please.
I'm Asia Creech. I'm a housing case manager for West Sound for the women's houses. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I do case management for the ladies in the house and a little bit of everything else sometimes.
Sure.
My name is Skylar Page. I'm the male housing case manager for West End.
Asia, you say Skylar?
Yes.
Skylar?
Heather.
Heather? All right, it's a pleasure to meet you. They're right downstairs. This is very serendipitous, and this is how community is built. True story. I love it. Does anyone else have any questions or comments regarding housing, what they see, or do you know of anyone that is experiencing?
I have a question for KCR Matt. Matt, you were asked, how you doing? You were asked a while back for individuals we're dealing with now. We have a new program at Survive and Change called Men of Motivations. When we're dealing with individuals who are just did a long stretch in prison for 23, 25, 27 years. The problem with the basin, you were asked this before at one of our podcasts about individuals getting out of the prison system, having a difficult time getting housing. My thing, have you researched that, went back to your board, or found the solution? Because it's so hard for those individuals to get into any housing program. Have we found the solution? Because we do want to reduce the recidivism, of going back to prison. So have you looked into that? Have we found the avenue where we can get these men that's coming out of prison? Like some of them that are in our program have gone to prison at the age of 17 and 18. And they just now got out last year or even in January, and their biggest problem is housing.
Yeah, no, I mean, Debbie, you bring up a really good point. That is a population that has a lot of barriers. And like a lot of us up here, what we've seen is a lot of homeless services have trended towards serving folks that are more vulnerable. And so we're kind of scrambling as well. of trying to get more services. And that's something throughout this year that we're actually trying to orient to actually have more case managers and have lower caseloads to actually serve more vulnerable folks, because that's what we're finding is that people need more support to actually find and locate housing in this incredibly tight market. It's kind of an impossible task on some level because there's just so few units available. So is there a slam dunk solution? No. I mean, it's hard, but it's part of a process that we're undergoing to be able to serve folks who are in all types of categories of exiting systems of care, right? Especially if they went in homeless and are exiting, you know, they still count as homeless. So all those homeless resources are still available to them. I think our bandwidth right now is actually the case managers to really serve some of those folks effectively. And so that's kind of a process. I hope by next year we'll have doubled our case managers, but it takes time to do that.
No, Oxford has re-entry beds for folks coming out of incarceration.
Can you speak into the mic so that people can hear you? Sorry.
So I don't know, I didn't hear the entirety of your question, but I know that at one point or another in my own life, I was associated with Oxford. And I know that Oxford houses do have reentry beds and at least one bed in every house. And that's not a lot, but I mean, in this area, I think our Oxford houses are in the 20s, 20 or 30 houses, something like that. So there are reentry beds in those houses for folks coming out of incarceration, not necessarily the jail, the county jail, but specifically the prisons. And they should start that process while they're in prison so that they have an address to come to, which is, you know, clean and sober recovery housing. I don't know if you're aware of that organization, but there are others like it.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Deborah. I'll answer.
Matt, I wanted to tell you, MDC has a program over there, which I have referred some of them who just got out of prison over to a good friend. Some of you guys know Cynthia Brady. Her sister works for MDC over there. They do have a program for reentry offenders, and you have to be coming out of prison and then connected to the mental health to get referrals. What this program does, they have $7,000 for each client. They don't get it. They put them up into Bridges Stay, the Stay Hotel that's over there by Tacoma. And then after that, then they have enough time to go ahead and look for a place and everything. Then they go ahead and go, and that's while they're into the housing program. But you have to be coming out of prison and connected to the mental health. You have to have a record. So my thing is, you might want to contact them and find out what type of fundings, you know, they have. Ask them about their program, because that's what we do. We find out what somebody else has and let's borrow it and adapt it here. You know what I'm saying? So MDC over in Tacoma, you'll probably want to look into their program. You can ask for Pamela Orange, Pamela Williams.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, if you have a contact, I'd be happy to reach out and see what they're doing. That's the Metropolitan Development Council?
Yes,
is that
correct.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about what they're doing.
Yes, because I put several people in that program.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
There's definitely more work to be done there, 100%. And speaking with Oxford, we do fund folks in Oxford houses with our HARPs and our roast funds. So we do partner with the Oxford houses in order to fund folks on that. And we do some outreach to the jail as well. But I agree, Deborah, there's definitely more work to be done for folks. And also there's the reentry program too, that's Janelle McFeet, I think, runs that program, and they do a lot of really good work for reentry folks, and they have success coaches that come around, and we're just expanding our partnership with them. We've had a few cases where we've done some wraparound services, so we're looking to continue to kind of partner with them too for the reentry work, but I definitely want to give them a shout out because they're doing really good work.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. Great question and suggestion.
So I'm going to ask the hard question to all of you. Yeah, I'm going to ask the hard question to all of you as Marwan busts my chops for not picking up the mic. My sense is from the research that I've done is the problem is not shrinking, but rather growing. And it's already overwhelming. You're already playing, you know, put the cart in front of the horse games. What's
the thinking around how you're going to deal with the next 10 years as it gets worse and worse and worse? I mean, you do the math and you realize that if people are being paid somewhere between $15 and $20 an hour, and rent is an average of $1,600 for a one bedroom, and you've got health insurance and everything else. Princeton's study 2 years ago said that it requires a $48,000 a year salary to keep even and not continue to go into debt. And I don't know that many people making 48,000 or more at the moment. And those jobs are getting fewer and fewer and fewer. So what's the thinking around that and what's going to happen over the next 10 years?
You want to start, Jill?
Well, no, it's
I said I'd ask the hard question.
yeah, no, it's a great question. And we think about this a lot because it is, the problem is growing, not getting smaller. So, you know, and obviously it's not, one person's not going to solve it, or one organization is not going to solve it. So from the Housing Authority's perspective, we're looking at our programs, and in our voucher program, I've been very vocal about this. It's been underutilized for many years, severely underutilized. So we are trying to make sure that every voucher that we have is utilized. And just to put numbers out there, it's about 600 right now, vouchers that are not being used.
So can I ask a question about that program? Because just to piggyback on what he was saying, you know, I personally know someone who fits exactly that category, in between the $16 and $20 an hour, single mom, 2 kids. She was on the wait list for 2 years and just finally got housing. So that, I'm kind of confused about this underutilization when she was waiting so long to get housing.
Yeah. So, and that's, a lot of people don't understand. So when it takes, we pull a certain amount, and it's a lot of paperwork. So we have to have people fit. Deborah's shaking her head because she knows we have to have paperwork. And when the paperwork comes in, they have a certain amount of time to find housing. So right now, for instance, we have 158 people that have a voucher. Their paperwork has come in and they're out searching. We can't necessarily issue another 400 vouchers. There's not enough housing, first of all, for that. And then second of all, we don't have enough staff to process it, even if there was. The third issue is that HUD has been underfunding us. So they've been funding us to the level of our utilization. So if we utilize 1,300 vouchers in 1 year, the funding for the next year is essentially for 1,300 vouchers. So we can't just automatically issue all of our underutilized vouchers, because then we would not have enough money to support that. What we can do though is issue them incrementally. So while we might only be funded right now for 1,300 vouchers, we're going to push it, you know, to 1,400 or maybe even 1,500 if we can, because then HUD has special programs that they will fund us, but we will be in what's called shortfall position, meaning that we don't have enough money. So now they have to give us more money. We like that and we're willing to do that. But if you enter into that program, then HUD says, we'll give you this money, but you have to stop leasing until January. So it's always this shift that we're playing, and constant. And so that's why somebody could be on the wait list for 2 years and before they get a voucher. But that being said, we don't like to see that. And so we are really in the process right now of becoming more efficient, making sure our software is better, and that we're utilizing more online screening programs so we can do things faster, so that we can issue more quickly. We also have a big push towards customer service. So we have an initiative right now to make sure that we are implementing customer service standards in every process that we do. Right now, if you were to say to me, if I get all my paperwork in, when will the voucher be issued? And I couldn't give you a date. Well, we don't think that's acceptable, but we've been running on a shoestring. So now we're just trying to pull ourselves back and say, we want to be able to answer those questions to our clients. So if somebody gets a voucher, we want to be able to say, you know, if you get your paperwork in, we'll issue this voucher to you within 2 weeks, so that you have something more to count on. We haven't been able to do that in the past, but we're getting to that point now.
Well, then how much are the vouchers now? I mean, for a family of 1 or 2, and seeing that the rent is so high around here, so does it equal out to the?
So that, this will go back to your question as well. So can't control everything, but what we can do is we can push for the things that we can control. So in Kitsap County, the fair market rents have not been even to the market rents for a very long time. Everybody knows that. So, for instance, Katie looked at the units available on a one day, was it a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, and there was 54 units available for rent. And of those 54 units, correct me if I'm wrong, 20% of them were affordable for a voucher holder.
It was more like 10% at our current voucher rate that were actually would even be considered affordable. And as we know, even if they're affordable, it doesn't mean they actually get the unit because of their barriers in the application process and how many people are actually going to apply for that unit. So the fact that even on the market at any point in time, it could be 10% of the units are even affordable, that's only the first step.
Exactly. So it's a challenge. So think about that. 158 people with a voucher in hand searching for 10% of 54 vouchers and or 54 units. And part of the problem is because the fair market rents were so low. When we got our fair market rents this year, and we've been talking about this on the podcast, they went up by 2%. And that was just unacceptable. Like, what are we going to do with that? You know? So there was an appeal process and it was not cheap. So this appeal process cost, both housing authorities went in on it. It was about $86,000 to appeal that we're not getting the money that we need. And so, but we were successful in the appeal. And so HUD said, yeah, we agree with Bremerton Housing Authority and Housing Kitsap that Kitsap County fair market rents by HUD's calculation were way too low. And they gave us a 20% increase, which is still probably not high enough, but it made of those 54 units, was it 40?
It was about, instead of 10% now of those 54 units that could be available at any time, rental units, about 40% now might be considered affordable. Again, this is based on the time. We know rental units are scarce, but to say that we would give more access to these units and they would be considered affordable, meaning we can get them in the door to apply and to go through the processes and have more opportunity. So from 10% to 40% of the units on the market is a huge increase. And of course that can change at any time, but just even considering that 20% increase had such an impact on our market in Kitsap County.
So just to answer your question, then I'll come to you. So I'm just going to go off my memory. I've been looking at the fair market rents, but so it's on our website, but I believe like for a studio, it went up to about 1,100 for one bedroom, around 1,300, two bedroom was 1,700. And so it just goes up from, okay, thank you. So you've been on our website, haven't you?
And to add to that, fair market rents are the number we have to base our payment standards on, and we have some flexibility to decide our payment standard, meaning we're, I think, in the process of getting a waiver to possibly move from 100 to 110% of the FMR that we can use to subsidize the vouchers to 120%. So if the FMR say is $1,700 for a 2-bedroom, we would actually be able to pay 120%. But that waiver is still in process. But that is our goal, to use have as much control over this as possible, meaning put as much money out there to meet that market demand. So our voucher holders have a chance to get these units.
Yeah. And the other thing that we're subject to is called a rent reasonable test. And you would think that, well, when we do this test, everybody's rents are so high, we wouldn't have any problems. But that's not necessarily the case. There are lots of landlords out there that do not ask us for rent increases. So we're trying to get the word out, ask us for rent increases because we can make them. But and it's an important factor, because if we are looking at one person's rent and comparing it to people who have not raised their rents in many years, the rent reasonable test will pop in, and then we have to lower the amount. So, I mean, it's better, while I don't want to say everybody raise your rents, it's better collectively if we're all kind of, even. Yeah. So you had a question?
I was just wondering if there was a plan to actually build more affordable housing, because I see all these housing complexes popping up everywhere, and it's, $600K minimum.
Was that part of your question?
That was part of my question. That was the important part of my question. But I just can't imagine even being, a young couple trying to start out and, the person I mentioned earlier, again, working full time, 2 kids, single mom. And if it wasn't for their parents would be on the streets because they simply couldn't afford anything. And so is there any plan? It sounds like there's just a shortage of what's available out there. Is there a plan to address that?
So I can only speak to the housing authority, but it's a huge problem. And one of our goals is to develop housing. It's been frustrating because the cost, even just acquiring and preserving affordable housing, the cost is just outrageous. So, first, I think I've been here for about a year. And at first we were looking at big projects, like where could we get 100 units or develop 100 units? And the money's just not there. And at least I haven't found it yet. But what I have been kind of switching, and the housing authorities kind of been switching our mind thought on this, is that, okay, if we can't do something big, what can we do? And so when the Commerce came out with their rapid rehousing grant, the phase 1, Kitsap didn't get anything. Kitsap didn't apply for anything. So it's hard to get it if you don't apply. But what we noticed between KCR and myself is that the projects that did get funded were brand new projects. So, and because it's rapid housing. So they wanted to get people into that within 90 days or something like that. So, so we were looking for what's brand new that we can buy. Brand new apartment complexes. Housing authority is not going to be able to afford that, but we could afford 5 new houses. So we put in an application for that, and we were successful in getting that. So we've got 5 new homes, which isn't a lot, but it's 5 more than we had before. And the other thing that we're working on, the board just approved on Monday night, is we're looking to build 8 units adjacent to one of the properties that we own right now. So those are small, but I don't know what KCR's plans are, but we definitely are understanding and knowing and pursuing to the best that we can the development of new housing. And our board is very committed to this. So for those 5 new houses, our board put $1 million into the project, and they were all $500,000 homes. And so, but if we're able to put 200,000 into something and we can get grant money to put the additional in, the return on the investment of the 200,000 is attainable over the next probably 10 years. And so it's something that's kind of a reinvestment. What the housing authority can't do is put in something that we can't get our money back within a short period of time, because then we'll run out. So we're looking for those opportunities where between either using reserves or using debt that we can afford with affordable housing, to use those mechanisms to develop more housing.
Isn't there a policy that requires new developments to have some percentage of units be affordable? Is that not a thing?
That is a thing. That is a thing. And I'm not the expert on this, but my understanding is, do you know more about this? I know a little bit.
Go, you probably know more than I do.
Okay. I know that is a thing, but that there's a way to buy yourself out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so in our community, I think a lot of developers, and I don't know this, the stats on this, but yeah,
right,
but there is that. And I think that I know Mayor Wheeler has spoken to programs like this, and is fairly committed. So he might be someone we should have on to discuss that, and I'll get myself more familiar with it.
So just as a thoughts piece, Resilient Ecosystems, my organization, we do a lot about perspective. And we've been thinking about this particular subject for quite a long time, doing a lot of research on it. And when you look at a trend over the last 20 years of government spending and money from federal government and support funding coming to the municipalities, coming to organizations, it's been shrinking. It's been shrinking steadily for 20 to 30 years. So you're a city councilman, you're a county commissioner, you're trying to figure out how to pay for services. And the only reliable source you can see is development. So you end up with paving the entire county to try and support the services necessary for people today. It's a short-term thinking. It's going to fail. And people are going to be hurt by this process. But it is the only way that they can see reliable money coming into the government to be able to pay for the services that they have now. When you think of it that way, and you start seeing how development and prices go up and how affordable housing is never seemingly on the plate. The only way to change that is by people coming together and getting involved and telling the politicians who are supposed to serve us that that's not acceptable. And so far that hasn't happened. There are organizations saying this is untenable. We can't make this work. It's not going to work 5 years from now. It's not working now. It's not going to work 10 years from now. It's up to us to come together and to go to the politicians and say, if you want to sit in that chair and you want to be a representative of us, then you're going to have to start addressing the things that are happening today. And we have to get inventive about how to pay for the systems. And offline another time, anybody who wants to have a conversation with us, we have been doing this for a long time. Evelyn back there was working with me at the Clean Technology Trade Alliance. There are solutions that are far cheaper than what we're doing now to support infrastructure that we could be adopting.
Well, Mark,
but we aren't.
What are those solutions that you?
Well, okay, so we just spent, I believe it's $60 million to refurbish the Brownsville wastewater treatment plant and bring it up to capacity. There's been a technology around for 40 years where you can put a house-sized wastewater treatment plant into a neighborhood, get the developer to pay for it because it's like $5 million, and you are able to cover 2,000 homes and bring water back up to a potable level. But we're not doing that. We're doing the same multi-million-dollar solutions that are antiquated and end up getting lawsuits by the Puget Sound keepers like Bremerton did, where they were sued for $50 million and had to redo their plant because stormwater was washing sewage into the sound. There are better technologies. We're not adopting them.
Yeah, I'll just speak to what Casey. I'm not definitely not. That's not my field of expertise, Mark. So I'll let you take that one.
No,
but,
it's okay. I just that was a perspective piece.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a very important topic for discussion. But back to what Jill was saying, and Jill's been a tremendous leader in this respect of trying to think of innovative ways with our current funding streams of how to move forward. And we have a similar model of smaller bite-sized approach to at least taking, right, instead of a big chunk, smaller chunks. So our next big project is in Bremerton. It's in Manette. It's a 9-bedroom affordable housing that will be available for folks. And I think that's what some of what we can do, at least in the very near term. The positive thing that the commissioners just did is they approved another 0.1% sales tax that will go just for affordable housing. We have one that now goes towards treatment and therapeutic courts and mental health. That's where some of our funding comes from already for existing housing programs. But this one is it's a separate one that'll run through the county that's just for Kitsap. So we want to compete against the state. That's the other difficulty that we have is a lot of affordable housing funds. Are competitive across the state, whereas this is just for Kitsap. So these will be dollars from Kitsap that are flowing into Kitsap, projected maybe $4 to $7 million a year. We'll see what it ends up actually being, but that's positive, and that will be used just for agencies like Bremerton Housing Authority, Housing Kitsap, or Kitsap Community Resources, or any other agency that wants to take a stab at affordable housing or transitional housing or homeless services. So there is some short-term positive signs, but the problem is affordable housing, actual buildings for permanent supportive housing, emergency housing, they take a lot of time to build. And the other issues, given our kind of current system, as far as how much things cost, is refurb. A lot of times we get folks questions about refurbishing buildings, and the problem is, because of our kind of current market conditions, is refurbs often end up being more than if you'd built new. And I hate that's the system, but that is the reality of what we're dealing with when we're having to make decisions about funding streams. So
especially in Kitsap where the infrastructure is aging.
Yeah, so it's very difficult. I know we would all love to roll the dice and quickly rehab some buildings and turn into affordable housing, but we have a standard that we have to meet, that's set by HUD, and that's not easy to, and there's good reasons for that. We want all the units to be habitable. It's not a bad thing, but it does require investment, and some old buildings require a lot of money, and we're getting advice from architects and builders that it's actually going to be cheaper to build new. So that's the other challenge, because then you have to look for a lot. And so it is a process. So, but we are moving forward. It just takes time. And this is where we are getting involved, because it is going to, if we really want to see big gains, it is going to take injections of money from the federal government and the state and local. It's going to be a combination. But what's in our span of control right now, it's smaller projects like this that are going forward that are going to make a difference, and at least in the short term. So I think that's kind of what KCR's affordable housing model. Now, remember, there's three different sides of this coin. There's the affordable housing availability. There's the funding for the ongoing operations or rental subsidies, which are what housing choice vouchers are, transitional housing. And then there's the actual case management, getting clients the resources. So we are using and leveraging a lot of agencies, are newer funding streams like foundational community supports that are paying not through the grant model, but through an insurance model that allow you to scale up much more quickly to actually serve folks. So we are advancing and trying to scale resources on the case management side. Now, of course, they're all linked, but the affordable housing is the slowest one. Funding is a little faster and case management is a little quicker that we can respond to the conditions, but the affordable housing one just takes a long time.
And can I add something to your question about, isn't it required to have affordable housing? It's actually on the table right now at the city of Bremerton. So if anybody's interested in having input, they're talking about the multifamily tax exemption. So they have tax exemption for a certain amount of years for developments going into the city of Bremerton, and they're modifying that to make sure that they can support affordable housing better, because the original reason it was put into place many years ago, from what I understand, is it was to add more housing. They're just saying, we need more housing, we need more housing, we need to incentivize to put these in these areas, we need more housing. But now they really see the need to make it better, to make it affordable, not just more housing. But now, how do we make sure that there's also affordable piece to that?
Trickle down housing doesn't work.
So that is actually on the table at the city of Bremerton level. They're talking about it at council meetings. So the council meetings are all recorded on BCAT. If you're interested in watching, they've had some really good discussions about this, and they're still in, I think they're still in this discussion modes where they need input. So please contact your city council members if you want input on that, specifically in the development world.
It's almost like if you're gonna have an in-lieu fee, you should make it so astronomically high that it can go into trust fund or something.
I had a question, either for Matt or Ms. Batten. My question is that, is there a curfew for the Pendleton house? I call it house, but place.
That's a good question. I don't know. I wish Bridget Glasspool was here, because she's I believe the project manager for that. So I don't have too many specifics on Pendleton Place kind of operating procedures. I do know they're moving folks in waves. So it's going to be kind of like a phased, they're not just putting all 70 folks in at once. It's going to be kind of a phased move-in process. But I don't know if they actually have a curfew there, what their specific rules are.
Okay, and this can kind of be for both of you, but mostly with Ms. Batten. I had spoke with Reader Management, and so you know how they have the funds at Bremerton Housing Authority to help the landlords can go ahead and remodel if they want. And I know she had told me that they were interested in that. And then my thing, has she reached out to you, or have you did a follow-up? Thank you.
Yeah, I actually had a meeting with Brian Reeder and Ann Curry yesterday, and I gave them the landlord mitigation information, so they're looking into that, and we're going to try to work with them on the units that they bought to help and ensure that people are not displaced if we can. So yeah, we're working closely with them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And my other question was, since they're having a struggle with the vouchers of finding placement, some of the tenants are. My thing is there any possible way that they can go ahead and take their voucher to another county with this project-based voucher? Since if they couldn't find a home within this county, can they take it somewhere else?
So for new voucher holders, right now, our program, the program rules states that they have to be in the Kitsap County area for 1 year before they can do that. So no, but with the emergency housing vouchers, if they have one of those, that is possible.
Oh, okay. All right.
They have to take it to a jurisdiction that also has an emergency housing voucher program, but almost all of them do.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
You're welcome. And Katie and I actually probably need to be out of here by about 1. So,
Which is good now.
yeah. So,
Matt.
yeah.
Matt, excuse me, Mr. Gary, has your,
You can call him Matt, Deborah.
Matt, has your, continual care open yet?
Not right now, no. Like you're talking about the COC program?
Yes.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll be working because that's funded by Bremerton Housing Authority. So we'll hopefully be opening in the coming months a little bit more slots, but not at the current moment, no.
And we just got the notification of funding for that last week.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And then also, just before we wrap up, I want to let everybody know that I brought a bunch of at-home, over-the-counter rapid COVID tests and masks.
You don't get away with it that easy.
I'm not going to demonstrate everything. There's a flyer, and so if other organizations are interested in tests and masks, you can let me know. Marwan has my contact info. Like if BHA wants them, I don't know if our puffer team has reached out to you yet.
Yeah, you guys gave us a ton.
Okay,
Thank you
cool.
so much.
So anyone
Yeah.
else wants them in office or to distribute or have on hand,
We would love to have them in our houses.
Cool. Yeah.
I have a question for Jill and for Matt. Jill, me and you spoke about this while we're eating. I personally in this situation and other people, that if you have to move out and you've got a set timeline, you need to get your voucher and you're not getting any luck in getting a voucher, let alone finding a place. How do you go about remedying this?
So I gave you my card.
Yes.
But honestly, I mean, we are very short staffed. So if you're not hearing back, I would say just continue to call. But our office is open now. Is it still just 4 days a week?
4 days a week, 10 to 2, except for Wednesdays.
So come in person, make sure you come in person. If you go to the website and put in, and contact information is in there. And I think there's a place where you can just contact the housing authority. That comes straight to my email. We're a small housing authority, so, I can just walk downstairs and find out what's going on. I'm never bothered to take a phone call or to answer an email.
Let me ask this, if a person I know is struggling, left their job for health reasons, but they have a mortgage, what kind of help could they get?
Mortgage assistance.
Thanks, Deborah.
Or can she apply for a voucher?
So I don't think there's any vouchers for mortgage assistance. So we typically don't have more. We have a small pot that we advocated for because we did hear some feedback from the community that there was some mortgage holders that were low income. So yeah, if you're under 80% AMI, you can apply online at kcr.org. We've got a limited, it's a small number, so it's not always open because it's such a small pot of money, but right now it is open. So we have a small pot of fund for mortgage folks. Now, we don't expect that to be long-term. It's only up to 6 months of assistance. So it's not an ongoing, it's really a kind of a COVID kind of crisis mortgage assistance. But yes, we have a few limited number of spots. But I don't imagine that being around because those are CDBG COVID funds that are not going to be permanent. So I don't think there'll be permanent mortgage assistance.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So we have a lot of organizations here in the house: West Sound Treatment, KCR, Museum of Ecosystems, Bremerton Housing Authority, Surviving Chains, Kitsap Public Health, G2, the Conduit, New Horizon Ministry, Kitsap Strong was here earlier. We just announced this 2 weeks
New Life
ago.
Church.
Who?
New Life
Bremerton
Church.
New Life.
Oh,
Bremerton New Life,
Church.
also Bremerton Curwalk has a homeless outreach.
Okay, so we have, we're at over 10, right? So that's awesome. We only put this out 2 weeks ago. How do you guys feel being in this space? What did you think about the breakfast? Is there something else that you would like us to serve? Is there something that that you would be willing to engage with? Maybe once a month we do our meetings here and have people kind of come in and share, their resources and get to know each other. Is that something that we maybe can do?
With even the possibility of coming to a place where we work together to create changes in the
You always
community.
push the bounds, man. Show up.
Mark is an innovator. It's good, Mark.
I'm a shit disturber.
Somebody got to do it.
That is true. But what did you think of today?
Great.
It was good.
It was awesome.
It was
Yeah,
good.
enjoyed it.
It was good. It was very good.
The food, for those that tried it.
Oh my gosh,
That was
those
one.
vegetable pancakes.
You know, like cinnamon and pancakes.
Yeah.
So there were some other options that were kind of floated. What was that?
Enchilada casserole.
You know, I can't remember.
Biscuits and gravy?
Yeah,
What
biscuits
were
and
the
gravy, waffles, pancakes. She also floated the idea of like a scrambled egg, a scramble with, you know, meat and cheese and stuff in it.
So how many would entertain biscuits and gravy? Okay.
Definitely.
It all sounded good.
There will always be gluten-free options and dairy-free options.
So what do we don't like? What's the least? Pancakes, waffles, or what's the third one? Waffles or pancakes? French toast.
Oh, I like.
What's the worst?
I like all of them.
You like all? Waffles are the worst?
Pancakes are the worst.
Pancakes are the worst? All right, so we don't have
Love it.
consensus there. Should we have tea?
As long as you can cater to the high maintenance, gluten-free, dairy-free, I'm happy.
We have that covered.
Okay.
Got it.
You're
We
my
got
man.
that one covered in spades. So then what we're gonna do then is once a month, you know, our show every Wednesday with the Bremerton Housing Authority and KCR is at 3 p.m. Resilient Ecosystems is at 12. But every fourth Wednesday, then we will meet here, thanking Pastor Ellington from New Horizon Ministries to open up his building to us, to meet here. And G2 will provide the food, and we will invite other organizations to come in. And not just that, it's important for us to meet and get the information out, not only to the people that come here physically and hear it and take it out to their organizations and to the clients and the viewers that watch online, but we also want clients to come in too, because ultimately they're the end users. Those are the ones that are going to benefit from it. So this is an open invitation. Please tell your folks to come on in, you know, the last Wednesday of the month for pancake breakfast or whatever the breakfast brunch is going to be. And we will serve them with a smile and hopefully ask them questions and, you know, identify some unmet needs and then connect them to resources. Because we learned a lot, you know, today. So I'm so very appreciative of you telling your staff and coming on up.
Thank you.
You know, many people are really shy. It's like, hey, come on up, we're having pancake breakfast. I was just telling someone in the hall, it's like, oh, I gotta wash my finger, I'm out of here. Thank you though. But it's nice, right? So yeah, I just want to thank everyone. That's one of our drivers back there, Tony. How you doing, Tony?
Hi guys, how you doing? Good to see you.
If you are G2 or the Conduit, please raise your hand. So all these folks are what made your breakfast possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to thank them for that.
Just can I ask one question? So Employee Volunteer Week, is that what it's called? Is coming up in April. And so we're promoting that with our employees. So if any organization in here has a volunteer opportunity for BHA employees, please email us. Email me.
Do I?
I know.
Can I send an email there?
Yes, you may.
I need 50 people. You have no idea. You know, for those of you that don't know, because G2 hasn't really spoken here, and those of you that may not know a lot about G2, our mission is self-sufficiency for all Kitsap County residents. We do have a transportation program, G2 Cab, right? We just purchased our first wheelchair accessible van. So that is a big deal for us. We just turned 4 in February, so we're just now adding that to the fleet. We're about a third of the price of a cab or an Uber. And if your trip is short, we only charge you for the round trip, just the one way, not there and back. And so if it's 15 minutes, the clock isn't ticking, right? Like in a cab or an Uber. Self-sufficiency, we want to get people not operating from a space of crisis, right? Like, oh, I got to go here right now, right? And then tomorrow they got to go here. You know, it's like, okay, where all do you need to go? Let's try to take care of all your needs, save money, save time, which is one of our most valuable resources. We also address food. Every Thursdays, we provide free meals that are prepared. Last Thursday was supposed to be breakfast, ended up being fried chicken and some other things. But shepherd's pie, all types of really good items, and we deliver. So everyone who is experiencing food insecurity isn't downtown in the street. Many people are in their homes are experiencing that. So shout out to Youth for Christ. And we provide meals to their population.
of folks, and we can do that for your folks too. So if you have that need, please let us know the Tuesday before and give the address and how many meals, and we will put them on our route. We do have our computer lab up and running. Applause for the private ministry. So in the other side over there are 10 computers, and so folks can come up. Rev is getting set up with North Star Computer Training Program. This is a training program. When I taught at the college, I was part of the computer literacy department, and that's one of the things that we kind of installed. Goodwill is using that program now, and so if people need basic skills in Word, Excel, they can come up and get some training there. Go ahead.
Amen.
I recently just got an email about Goodwill giving away laptops to
That's
kids.
right. Today, if you're making under $1,500 a month, I think you are eligible for a free laptop at Goodwill. Thank you
You
for
don't
that.
have any to show any proof or something that the Kitsap County's underserved.
Yeah, we'll try to pull up the email and put that in the chat. That's a big deal. But we have the classes here. We know that computer literacy is a huge issue for a lot of folks. You know, if you're trying to get utility assistance, if you're trying to apply for a job, your resume, your cover letters, all these things are all electronic now. And so folks need those skills. They need that patience. They need that grace. So we have that there for them. One big one is email alerts come out to their phones. Well, I don't have this phone anymore, and this was the phone that had my email on there, and I don't remember. So I'm getting all this good information, but it's going to a dead phone, and I don't know how to sign into that, retrieve that password. So teaching all those skills will be available here and a drop-in lab, right? So if people need a computer, they need to print out a document, they can come up here and use our computers. So that is happening now. And again, thank you to New Horizon Ministries for that, allowing us to expand and partner and help them serve their mission at the same time. So we're excited about that. Hopefully COVID will continue to recede, but we'll do what we got to do. Did I leave anything out, G2?
No, I think you covered it all there, Bob.
All right, and of course the Conduit, right? So the podcast that has started, I would love to interview West Sound Technical, or West Sound Technical. That's what I think when I hear West Sound. West Sound Treatment. I'd love for you guys to come on and give out information or have folks that want to come and talk about their experience. So education and informing the public at large, I think, is a big way when we think about resilient ecosystems and tipping points and puzzle pieces coming together, right? The voice isn't just the voice of the powerful, but the voice is for all people, right? And communication needs to go both ways, not just us talking and saying, hey, here's this resource, but hey, this is my situation and I need help. And this is what it looks like to you.
So, and to put a finer point on it, I think one of the things we realized today is there are a lot of people doing a lot of really good work, but we don't know about each other. We aren't talking, we aren't sharing the information. There's no central point. And until there is, we're doing a disservice to ourselves and to the community. And Marwan and I agree and have agreed from the very beginning of our relationship between G2 and Resilient Ecosystems that we want to bring the organizations together and start having meaningful conversations about what's coming, what's being done, and what we can do together, because alone, we only have our own resources. Together, we have puzzle pieces that we don't know about. We need to get those puzzle pieces to the table and start seeing what the picture looks like.
All right, I know that we have kept our focus, and Matt has a finite amount of time. I know Jill and Katie need to probably go. I'm on camera, how do I get out of here?
That's hard.
We want to thank you all for coming. We're going to continue on with the show. Nick, if you want to come on now. I know Holly is leaving. Thank you so
Did
much.
you guys get a passport?
We didn't get one actually.
Okay, so what we do is we have classes, we promote neighborhood block parties.
Please subscribe,
Matt,
like,
grab a
and share.
passport before you leave. I'll talk to you about it
Share
later.
out the podcast with others so they can access the information.
But what we do is we give stamps in the passport as people go down the journey of resiliency and develop their neighborhood resiliency. And we want to get neighborhoods working together because we can do a lot more if everyone's talking to each other. So we help them learn how to overcome
I don't like that neighbor. You don't know him.
Yeah.
So let's
Well,
remedy
and,
that.
and I think it's so important to bring everybody together to talk about what's in progress. Because what you see from the outside, that these programs aren't available, we have reasons why, and we're working on it. But it's nice to be able to have that conversation to work together.
Exactly.
If there
And if-
are points where we could use some help.
Yeah, our whole thing is about puzzle pieces because we say we're developing a framework, which is really the edges of the puzzle. But we don't know what it's going to be until people bring their pieces.
Yeah. I understand. Well, it's very nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet
You too.
you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Let me get out of here.
I'll grab one of those. Thank you,
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed yourself.
It was very nice.
Great. Thanks for the food too. I had not breakfast.
Get back to me on these.
I'll make okonomiyaki.
Yes, absolutely, I will.
Yeah.
Even Marwan had one. I was a little surprised.
Had one what?
She likes my okonomiyaki.
Yeah, it was good. I never had it before. Never heard of it before.
See, we're learning so many new things today.
That's it. All right, Nick, where you at? Come on down.
Actually, I just changed my location.
Thank you. All right, so we're not gonna keep you much longer, but I actually wanted to ask a question. Oh, we have some folks in the chat there. I'm gonna check.
Huh?
How you doing, friend?
Oh, hey, how's it going? God, meeting face to face, it's a little odd. It's like, I know him.
See me on TV.
Yeah.
Well, go back and tell them that pancake was good.
They probably really wanted to go.
Yeah.
They wanted to go.
You wanna take a couple plates? We got some.
No, that's my job. They're doing outreach education.
So do you have the vegetable pancake?
They might be hungry.
Oh, no, they go home.
I'm a stranger to the.
Wow.
You know how young people are.
They're ready to go.
Yeah,
This for about
love you.
20, 30 years.
Thank you.
It's good to see you, sis.
I've had something
too.
Oh, yeah, and I was right down the street, and so I had to come.
All right, have a seat,
No,
gentlemen.
so
Let's go
Thursday and
ahead
Saturday.
and get this thing going.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And it's,
What time? 9?
You know,
Yeah.
you want to- we got.
yeah.
Every week.
Bring Evelyn up.
Yeah.
Hey, Evelyn.
All right,
Evelyn.
okay, tell the family I said hello.
I will. Yep. You're in the next phase of the podcast.
Are you kidding me?
No, you get to talk about me. You get to talk dirt about me.
Hey, how many oranges did it take?
6. Oh, no.
6 bags?
No, 6. I was talking about the
We talking about
pancakes.
for the orange juice?
Yeah.
We talked about that offline, sir. We can't reveal the secrets.
I am.
Are we calling out our tang? It's orange juice, everyone.
We're now officially doing tipping points and puzzle pieces.
No.
Nope.
I think this is you've got theory and then you've got application.
I was just wondering.
I think
I'm like,
what just
okay.
happened was tipping points.
Yep, application.
Yeah.
So the
No,
question,
I like poked in my orange. That's all there.
I know, why are you walking backwards? You should be walking
No.
forward.
Hey, Terry. Terry,
Terry.
have a
We're in
seat.
Studio, there's no reason for you not to be up front.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to make sure, like when you say it's fresh squeeze, like this one fresh squeeze in there. The rest
All right,
comes
so
from-
let me get you guys some microphones here.
I got this one here.
There you go. Okay.
You go ahead and put that on your collar.
On my what?
Rob, you want to come on down?
Color.
Come on now.
11 to 12.
Come for a few seconds. Come on down, have a seat for a few seconds. Okay, we got enough for everyone to have their own individual mic.
Yeah.
Evelyn, you may need to hold yours when it's time to talk.
Talking to my.
The top one is up, yeah, there you go.
Oh gosh. Okay.
All right, so the question that I have, you coming down, Pastor? It's on autopilot now. Keep trying to run. Pastor trying to run. Pastor, come up and have a seat.
All right, I'm done.
I'll come back.
You're trying to run.
I'll come back.
Ah, I see.
I got one.
Okay.
True.
Uh-huh.
No,
Sure you will.
It's full. That's
It's
his
not
seat.
full.
I don't
No,
want to
bro,
take
he
his
come
seat.
back for a while.
How you doing?
I've been waiting to haul.
Michael. Nick. Okay. Yeah. I met you online.
All right, so we're gonna go down the line. We'll start with Nick and we'll just go this way and then with Sabrina. As I was saying before, right, tipping points and puzzle pieces. We talk about theory, we talk about what we need to do. This is what needs to happen, right? This is what it looks like. This is people bringing their puzzle piece together. And what was great about it is this was just supposed to be ResEcho, BHA, and KCR, and it turned into many other organizations here. So give me your reflection of today. Was this a success? Are we in the right direction? What should we do differently? What should we do more of? What are your thoughts there? And then we'll start with you.
Okay. So, no, that was great. I like what I've seen today. I think what needs to manifest next is something that would be beneficial for everyone about how you guys can diversify together. What's the interplay? What else you guys can bring to the table that can further the cause for the people of the community. You know, once you realize what everyone's talking about out in the world here, what this organization does, what this agency does, then you need to begin to realize what can we do with the interplay between each other. What's going to happen amongst us that is further growing that benefit for people in the community. So I think today was a great starting point, but I think there's more work that absolutely needs to be done.
Absolutely. Pastor Ellington?
I think today was wildly successful. It was, great to just see everybody, here. In the future, definitely make sure you got waffles. But other than that, I would like to see a little bit more of the people that are actually affected by these changes, these policies, and so forth in the audience. Figuring out a way to really reach out to the community and get them in here so that they can ask the questions that's on their minds. You know what I'm saying? That and they can kind of probe. Uh, the heads the heads of these organizations and address those individual questions and stuff that they have. So yeah, I like I said, I just think it was wildly successful, and just I guess just adding some actual people from the community, because that's where the genuine questions are going to come from. Those day-to-day questions that, like, hey, this is Sister Nana was here and was asking about the mortgage, which until that came up, that wasn't really even on the horizon. So just kind of getting those type of questions in and those type of feedbacks from the community, I think is very valuable moving forward.
Let me ask you a follow-up question, because you were part of the planning. This is in your church, right?
Yeah.
And you talked about you felt like this was wildly successful. I know it's the mission of New Horizon Ministries to be a community church, right? Some of the things that you and I have talked about, and me being critical of just church, period. Is this what you envision as far as community?
Yeah, I wouldn't say this is the complete vision, but this is definitely, we're on the right path. This is stuff that you don't. I'll put it, not you. I'll put it that don't really see with other communities, other especially larger metropolitans. And like, yeah, you may have people come out to say the more formal things, like the city council meetings and so forth, and you only really just kind of have those people that are politically aware come out and ask questions. But today we had what did you count, 10 different organizations available, and there were, just regular community people here. I like to see more, but there were regular community people here just asking, just everyday questions, and just to, and I applaud everybody that came out and made themselves available, for that. But so I think that's a very powerful thing, and I think as far as Kitsap goes, this county, this is something that will set us apart and help us, move into a new age, because the status quo of what used to be, is changing. The world is changing, and just to see people embrace that change and say, hey, let's put our minds together and figure out what tomorrow is going to look like, and how do we make tomorrow work for the community. That's so valuable. So yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Evelyn, as you've experienced this today, and you came from an organization previous to Roseco. Roseco was born out of this. What are your thoughts on what you've observed today? Are we going in the right direction? What are some things that we could do differently or do more of?
I think anytime organizations, agencies, groups can come together and help each other, it's always a benefit rather than each of us trying to reinvent the wheel. One of the reasons that New Life Church does not have a food pantry of its own is that we support ministries and organizations that are already there. You won't find a New Life Church in Kitsap County with a food pantry, although we do have a little teeny tiny one connected to our homeless ministry down behind the East Bremerton Community Gym. But all that is to say, we try to come alongside existing agencies in the area and partner with them. And so rather than reinvent the wheel, and I think as we introduce ourselves and realize what resources are already out there, we can start networking and putting the puzzle pieces together a lot easier. But if we don't even know each other exists, I think it seems like this is a step in the right direction. And I can think of a few people I hope to get here in the room next month. And I can probably think of a few people actually out in downtown Bremerton that might need some of the housing, those beds that are available. So we need to talk, plain and simple. So those are my thoughts. I also have a 23-year-old that cannot find affordable housing. He has very little hope of being able to afford housing even after getting a bachelor's degree. And so I want to increase the possibility that I will see empty nests someday.
Talk about that. Is he working right now?
No, he's going to Olympic College, but at least once a week we have a conversation about how frustrating it is for his generation. It's getting more and more difficult for young adults to leave home. And I'm like, oh God, please, you got to find a way. But it's true. Younger folks, those statistics of, the predictable income, 15, 20 bucks an hour, it's really hard to lunch young adults in this economy.
Well, and the math on that, if you would, if you're working full time, that's about 2,080 hours per year, right? And if you multiply, if you have a $20 an hour job, that's $40,000 a year. You multiply that by 0.8, you get your taxes, that's $32,000. The average rent is about $1,500. You're talking about $18,000 right there. That's coming off the top just to pay your rent.
It's very depressing for our young adults to launch into life.
It's not enough.
Right.
You're saying that your son has a bachelor's degree. And
Not yet.
He's working on his bachelor's degree, right? And then is there a job for him on the other side? That's the hard thing. In this
sure, at McDonald's. They're hiring today.
But he didn't go to get a bachelor's degree and go into student loan debt to work at McDonald's, right? So his plan is what?
Actually, he's studying art. And so, I mean, yes.
So what's the job for a bachelor's degree for art majors?
As the mom, sometimes it's hard for me to encourage in that direction, but that's his interest, that's his passion. And I think he has an entrepreneurial spirit that will hopefully fuel him in his, to carve out a path. Because I think there's a lot of traditional ways that things have been done for decades that just are not working for this generation.
sadly, what Mark is saying actually is true, right? It's going to be hard for art majors. McDonald's can't be one of his options. Being a barista, working at Starbucks, right? There are a lot of people that aren't using their degree, which is unfortunate. And all the student loans. I love to see, this is just, I digress, but I love to see everyone be required to serve in armed forces 2 to 4 years and then pay for, basic education, right? Either associate degree, really a bachelor's degree, but I think everyone should serve their country. It doesn't matter what your health is. You might not have to be on the front lines, but there's a lot of folks that, working in mailrooms, doing desk work, office work, the whole system has to work. But you're an American citizen, you're going to serve your country. I think we have to invest in our people, and then we also have to invest in the country also. That also may go further to get more people to actually engage in community, in government, and change some things. But again, I digress. So, Mark, this is episode, 13? 13, done 13 episodes in a row. Here we are doing this Pancake Breakfast. We're on the other side. Give us your thoughts on how you thought today went. Is this kind of what you envisioned? What are you hoping for now? This is your time to push the envelope,
Okay, so couple things. First, I want to say that Marwan and I both want to see people be invested in. That's our primary goal. Where we go with that is wildly divergent. I'm probably far more of a socialist in thinking than Marwan is. So just putting that on the table, and we can have discussions about that another time. Today, I was actually open-minded about where it was going to go, was surprised in a really good way about where it went. And I'm looking forward to the next one. Where do I want it to go from here? I want to build on this until we have a network of 8 organizations sitting down together and doing retreats together and looking at what the future will bring instead of reacting to what is presently a problem. Mm-hmm. Because the future isn't going to be better until we all come together anyhow. We have to make that happen. Pushing the envelope. I would like to see a discussion happening and action being taken in the low-income housing area about putting community gardens in where people live so that people can grow their own fruit and vegetables, especially as food prices go and grow until you go to the store and you're in shock. Mm-hmm. And it's getting to the point where we're in shock when you go to the store. I've seen things go up 30, 40% in the last month. So people, I mean, we're talking about rent, but and housing, but food is going to be a really big issue. Also, there's a scientific fact out there that if we continue the industrial farming we're doing now, that in 60 years, we may not be able to grow food. And what do we do then when we're not at 7.9 billion people, but we're at 8.6 billion people? And we can't grow food. We have to look at what we're doing. So how do we do that? We start looking at working with the agencies, working with the groups to see if we can push their envelope to get them to start putting power on the roofs of the houses, to start creating community gardens, to start creating some self-reliance locally by using technologies that have been more than proven that we aren't applying. Water is going to become an issue. So if you are using a wastewater treatment plant that's local, that can bring water back up to potable level. Well, nobody likes the idea of using gray water and making it potable, but it's better than drinking a mud puddle if there's no water around. So these are the things where I'd like to push the envelope. And I think that this is a good first step to starting those conversations.
What is gray water?
It's the part that doesn't have the solids in it when you flush the toilet.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. So
Yeah, that's a really simple
there's
description.
The clean water, the gray water, then the black water would have the solids.
Yeah.
Do they call it the black water? Okay. All right.
And there are ways that we can process that and make it useful that are being done in other countries, but we haven't even started here because we're investing again and again in 60, 70-year-old technology that's horribly outdated and inefficient.
I want to ask a question that may sound ignorant, right? We use cow manure, things like that for fertilizer. Why don't we
Heavy metals.
Heavy metals?
Human waste has an enormous amount of heavy metals. Though even with that, Japan has been using human waste to fertilize fields for decades. But we do have a lot of heavy metals in our diet, and it comes out in our waste. And it will affect. You can grow flowers with it. I mean, the South Sound Utility District has what they call human manure, which is the solids that have been purified and can be used in fertilizer, but only in vegetable, or not only in flower gardens, not vegetables or fruit and vegetables. However, there are technologies that we can use anaerobic digestion to create energy, to create soil amendments, to create all kinds of fly ash and other things, and get rid of waste that have been around for 20, 30 years. And Germany uses them quite successfully. But we don't invest in them here because we invest in the same old that is the known and true, even when there are better technologies. I'm going to swing to power for just a second. And Nick and I have had this conversation, and Marwan and I have too. In a major disaster, we have two power lines that come into Kitsap County. One comes through Gorst, one comes across the Comaneros Bridge. Anything happens in those areas, and we end up without power. And we're not even talking about the antiquated grid here, or the fact that when I lived in Port Orchard, I could look out my window at a power pole that literally goes down into the ocean because there was not enough land to put it on, which boggles my mind in all kinds of ways. We have not invested significantly in the grid for 60, 70 years because no one's responsible to do that, and it costs money. So just looking at power, even if not even a major disaster happened, but a minor disaster happened, we can have significant parts of Kitsap County without power. What does that look like? Well, wastewater treatment doesn't work, so it can get really messy. Refrigeration doesn't work. Hospitals are down. And we can do generators. The first thing anybody ever says, well, I have a generator. Okay, how much fuel do you have? Do you have 2 weeks worth of fuel for your generator to run? Yeah. And so there are all of these questions that are out there. We don't have an infrastructure solution for this. Germany does. Germany in 2011, when Fukushima happened, Germany voted to go off nuclear. They've closed most of their nuclear power plants at this point, and they've put an enormous amount of renewable energy up.
Let me ask you a question. So, and this is, I'm going to switch to Nick. Nick is in our emergency management program. If these programs exist in Germany, why are we not adopting these efficiencies here? What's your thought on that?
Okay. Well, can I give my 3-word answer first?
Well, again, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, so. Not invented here.
So there's really no one set answer for that. There's a lot of things that run systems. Systems affect systems. There's a reason why they're in place. There's a reason why we continually keep investing in those specific systems. It's difficult to get everyone to say, go ahead and cultivate your own fecal matter. Go ahead and get to cultivate your own, yard waste. Not a lot of people want to do that. Not a lot of people want to learn how to community garden. East Bremerton has that community garden. That's Thrive. Yeah, that's Thrive. Mm-hmm. And but not everyone invests into that. There's specific reasons why we can only grow certain things here because of the climate. Yes, there's greenhouse we can use. Yes, there's hydroponics, but that does draw on a lot of power. The other reason with like wind and solar, we got to think about our climate here. There are different ways that we can use wind and solar, but it does not contribute to the most efficient method yet, because we have not ran out of those fossil fuels. We will, but I'm not going to give percentages or numbers right now because I'm not too clear on them. I know they're very low, but the reason why we're not switching to specific things is the functionality of it. We have to get everyone on board. We have to get these corporations. So it's going to create a big shift in the capital market on what's being used. And we're not ready to make that shift right now. Do they work? Yes, but not to a high functioning level to where they can support a mass city, town, metropolitan area. So they can support small communities. But the reason is there's a whole host of issues that fall behind that, sanitation, disease, private companies not running things properly, someone not doing their job properly.
Quarterly profits.
Well, of course, yeah, absolutely. It does always come back to money. And so that's just sort of a factor of the answer. There's a whole other set of answers and variables to that dimension. So there's really not one answer there. There's a whole host of issues of why. Do they work? Yes. But not to the level in which we need them to work, because we have a lot of, we're very densely populated in specific areas, coastal communities, Western Seaboard, Eastern Seaboard, and then on the Southwest Dixie area is what they call Dixie Alley, even in up through Tornado Alley. And then, once we get through the Midwest, it's more sparse and spread out. So yeah, there's really no one answer to that. So we're sort of making our way there, but it's not, it can't, once we don't just switch it on and install it and it functions at a high level, because that's the problem. It's not. It's convincing all these companies in Capital America to invest in it before we run out of our fossil fuels. So
Evelyn and Terry, you guys were ResEco before I even knew what ResEco was. What are your thoughts on do you agree with what Nick was saying? Do you have some other insight as to why we have these efficiencies that are here, but we're just not making the headway that we can make, and how do we maybe accelerate that, hopefully?
This is definitely beyond my comfort zone, because previous to a couple of years ago, my comfort zone was about 3 feet tall, and in groups of 10, no more than 20. I'm career changing now to the world of psychology and counseling. So unfortunately, I think a lot of it is driven by money and selfish interests of someone, whether it be a group or whoever the stakeholders are, to gain money from a technology or whatever. Unfortunately, I think that drives a lot. I think also the convenience of having all the, all the bright, shiny things. Sometimes it's hard work to learn how to be self-sufficient. Part of my training is to know my story and know where I came from. I am a 4th generation Oregonian, and along with that goes a lot of pioneer history. But honestly, my husband and I order from Amazon at least once a week. I am starting to realize how not self-sufficient I am, and wanting to reclaim some of that pioneer blood and history in my family. But it's hard work. People like convenience. People want to be able to have it delivered to your door. People want to be able to just turn on a switch, flip a light on, whatever. And so I think there's going to be some, they're going to have to see the need. It's going to have to be what's in it for them and benefit them somehow, or grow that awareness of, oh, if I shift how I do business here, it will impact the planet, which will eventually take care of me and my children. I mean, they have to see the benefit of it. Otherwise, the convenience is going to be too compelling.
You said something so powerful. That's why I love talking to different people, right? Because oftentimes many of us are looking at government, politicians to fix it for us. All right, so use solar, use this, use wind, but we, the people, as Mark says, we outnumber the government and the politicians. And so it is going to take a fundamental lifestyle change for us to do that. And if we're really going to change it, if we change, it'll change the other way, right? Because that's what we've been saying that needs to happen anyway. But we do like our conveniences. Once a week for Amazon, I might have you beat. But there's an addiction to convenience, right?
Right.
Politically, I'm not a big fan of Walmart, but it's the cheapest game in town. I love my mom and pops. I love local business, but at the end of the day, I'm spending thousands of dollars a year, and I've got to try to save when I can. So I'm not even principled enough to say, you know what, I'm going to pay more, and I'm not going to support this organization. I'm not going to support this business. So that's a really powerful insight.
Can I piggyback on that? Okay, so piggybacking on that, I want to believe that I'm principled enough to know what organizations my money supports further down the supply chain, but that opens all sorts of cans of worms of where did this come from? Who put my whatever together? Was it legal? Were they under 18 years old? And I mean, it just opens up a whole can of worms of where does our money go? Who has time to do that? Really? Do you research where even 50% of your money goes? I want to believe that ethical people do. I don't have the time for it. And so that's going to be another one of those awareness raising things, and people who care enough will do the research on that of where their money goes. But I don't have the time for that myself. And I want to believe I'm a principled person,
I-
you know?
I think let me say something real quick. And I think the thing is with the ethical and moral shopping, the reality of it is nobody can afford to do it. It's not really so much about the time. We can't afford to do it. I just spent like near $50 for 10 gallons of gas in my car. You know, like if I can get that for half the price, if I can get it for $1 cheaper, do I care where it really came from? I can't afford to, really be concerned about, where it came from. I can't afford to be concerned about how, a piece of meat gets on my dinner table, as long as my children are fed, and that's where we're at right now, where we're priced out of our morals and our ethics, in this society, within a short span of what's this 22, so a short span of 6 years, we've seen the housing market, near double, the cost of rent. And that's something like, which I probably get into next month. But, I know we do a lot of talking about, affordable housing and so forth, but that's more based and designed around renting, where we know that owning is more stable. So instead of investing and putting our brains around, making sure people, which is still very important, paying rent, it's like, let's move people to the next stage. Like, how do we, progress them to ownership of, housing, where there's a bit more stability there, instead of just, constantly throwing money at the rental situation, and it's gonna continue to go in that route.
But is it more stable? I mean, we not too long ago had the mortgage debacle where hundreds of thousands of people ended up out of their homes.
Yeah, I was part of that.
That was part of it. I mean, there are so many rigged games around that I don't think there's any good solid solution.
Well, it's a lot more
today.
stable than, renting. And so if we can get, a low income family into a home that they can own, and
Which
one
is
thing
what Habitat's about.
Yeah, what's gonna happen is, one, as long as you don't put them in like some type of balloon loan or whatever, they're gonna have a stable,
And it's going to be less expensive on a monthly basis generally.
Exactly. And then once they're they pay themselves out of that mortgage, now, they just have to worry about the property taxes or whatever. So yeah, it's a lot more stable, and it
upkeep,
builds.
which is
Yeah,
upkeep.
I understand upkeep as well, but those dollars that we're now focusing towards paying people's rent, we can repurpose that and say, okay, well, let's help low income families with upkeep on a home that they own is a lot cheaper than, paying rent, on a monthly basis, so yeah, it's a lot more stable. And then also it builds the community where you have, families and you have people that are stationary in one spot. They actually get to know their neighbors, because they're there for years, on end. So it is in a lot of ways, it's a lot more stable, so yeah, that needs to be the eggs. That needs to be, the fix and the focus. Yeah, is like, I understand the temporary, like, yeah, we got to get your rent paid so you don't get evicted, but how do we move you into, a more stable situation where you own?
Habitat has had a lot of success with that.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
Oh, yeah.
building communities.
Because
of their
I have
focus.
family that, that lives in habitat housing that, they built and so forth. So yeah, I know that they do great work, but that's just one program, and we need more.
like it.
Yeah, we need more that's gonna, and there's no reason in this country that there's plenty of land. There's enough land for everybody to own a home, or if you want to be in an apartment, a condo, whatever, there's enough space for everybody.
So let me get Terry in on this conversation, and building on what Evelyn and Rev was talking about here. We say that we're too busy or, it costs too much. But let me give you a scenario. If it was Ku Klux Klan gas saves you less and it's $1 cheaper, would you go across the street and pay that extra $1, or are you going to go and fuel up on the Klan gas?
Oh yeah, I'm going to get that $1 off. Look,
you going to go to the Klan gas?
Yeah, and they gonna hate regardless. You know what I'm saying?
So then the question is
hold on. Let me, and before you move on, we're already doing that. You know what I'm saying? Where's the gas ultimately coming from? Most of it's coming from the Middle East. Most of it's coming, from people that are radicalized, that don't really like us. You know what I'm saying? So we're paying into that system already. Like, I'd rather give it to the, go ahead.
We don't have to go down that path. What I'm saying is, the reason why I'm trying to make such a visceral example is, what is the level that is going to get us to disengage?
Where's the level of our pain where we finally make a choice?
Okay. What is our level? If Rev is like, hey, it's already set that way, that's who they are, even if they put their name on it and tell us that's who they are, I'm still going to save that $1.
Yeah, I can't afford not to.
Cost? What's going to be that catalyst to say, enough? We're just not going to. We're tapped out of the matrix.
I think we need to go to universal income so we don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
I think it's like my oldest daughter. She's a CPA. She makes good money. She refuses to shop at Walmart. She will not. I have to. I don't make enough money to not shop at Walmart. Yeah. So to be able to have the income to be able to have the income that you need, I think we need to go to universal income. But that's in the future. That's not right this minute. So what are you going to do now? You're going to do what you can do now.
So let's say we have universal income. If you had universal income and let's say you were getting, what would it have to be? $3,000 a month? Would that be enough?
Probably not.
So you need $4,000, $5,000, we need $60,000 a year for universal basic income?
So
I think it all depends, in my future, we will have enough food. We will have enough water. We will not have to spend money on food and water and energy. So we won't need that much money because it will be something.
Because we'll be growing our own locally. Communities will.
I'd really got to. I love the idea of a UBI, right? That's awesome. A small city in California did a test pilot, and
29 countries are testing it.
Yeah, it went off without a hitch, right? Here's the thing though that has to be taken into consideration, right? We're seeing, and this is my opinion, of course, we're seeing retribution, behind the push for 15, right? Saying everything's going up. So yeah, okay, let's say, in the perfect world, we do a UBI, right? what is the restraints that you put on Coca-Cola, you put on the Koch brothers, you put on, you know, all these major companies to say that they're not going to price us out of that UBI? Because all they're going to do is, you know, saying like, oh, okay, you got extra money, I'm going to take it. And this is how I'm going to take it, by increasing the prices. So we're seeing, you know, like if you do A, you have to do B. And because they did A without doing B, you know what I'm saying, we're in the situation right now where I'm willing to say, yeah, I'm going to go to the Klan to save $1, you know what I'm saying, on the gas. Like, I mean, that's absurd. And of course, what I said was absurd as well, but I'm just making a point that we can't afford, you know what I'm saying, to be, you know what I'm saying, to make these moral and ethical choices that need to be made unless we begin to put the restraints on capitalism, you know what I'm saying, to say that, hey, we're not going to allow you to steal, you know what I'm saying, the people's money, you know, just because they got, you know, an extra quarter. You can't take an extra 50 cents from them. That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
Woo. Well, yeah, and let's talk about what that mechanism looks like. We used to call it regulation before we stopped regulating everything. And now people, I mean, I'm sure everybody sees the same news articles I do, that corporations are pulling in record profits year after year after year, while people are getting poorer and poorer and poorer year after year. More people are becoming homeless year after year. General Electric, I think it was 3 years ago I saw this article, paid 0 corporate taxes in this country. 0. They're like the second or third largest corporation in the world. And yet, I don't think you or I got away with paying 0 taxes.
Oh, I'm saying no, I didn't get away with paying 0 taxes.
So I'm just saying that we are okay. So the conversation we heard, and Pastor Ellen talked about this, and both Marwan and I watch Bo, the Fifth Column, because he's actually a really good analyst. And he had a conversation recently about the fact that you're hearing in the news all the time Russian oligarchs. It's not Russian oligarchs, they're multinational oligarchs. They're people who are corporate entities influencing governments all over the world. We have them here. We've had them here for decades. They make more decisions. They help the government make more decisions about how we live than we possibly do. That's just a fact. It's not opinion. And the only way we can get by this is changing the rules. And the only way we can do that is together. And I say this again and again, and I get people looking at me, well, how do you get together? You learn how to talk to each other again. You talk about human commonalities, the things that we need as humans: food, shelter, water. These are not guaranteed to us anymore. Matter of fact, Nestle made a comment 2 years ago that water is not a right. And corporations should profit off of our ability to have water.
It's still an ongoing battle, but yes.
Yeah. And where is the thinking about that? How is the commodities market even a thing? It boggles my mind. We allow people to wager on the price of food and water and oil and all of these things that we need to survive, and the price goes up because of it. Not because of supply and demand, which is what we're told and we believe, walking on the street going, I can believe that. It's bullshit. It's people manipulating the market. And we pay more. Russia supplies 3% of the oil that the United States gets, yet prices have gone up 30 and 40%. How do you explain that? It's called manipulation of the market by people who are making hand over fist money off of us with no benefit to us at all.
Well,
and there's no zero regulation.
Let's digress. So it's regulation. But what you said is apropos, right? Is we've got to get together. And that's kind of the question that I was raising. So let's continue on. Sabrina, what was your thoughts on today's event of getting together? Is this what you envisioned when we were planning this? What do you think of the execution? Are we in the going down the right direction? What do you think of this conversation?
So, I'm usually like the background person, so I don't have all the right vocabulary to, but it's like, is it just that we're like dumb kind of to pay all this and that we should be, I don't know if it's the right word, but protesting and doing other things like you're saying to talk to each other so that we can use each other and grow our own food, and I don't know how you make oil or anything, but, figure out our own lives and ride bikes and do what we used to do instead of paying these ridiculous prices, and they're raising it, if this is what you guys are talking about, because we're dumb enough to pay it. And like, I don't know if we're calling ourselves dumb.
I'll give you the word.
We don't have to.
Well, I'll give you the
There's
word
other
that we
ways around it,
use.
But we're like, yeah, sure. We don't have this much money. We're poor, but let me go out and spend this, I mean,
Yeah, we're not dumb, we're indoctrinated.
Indoctrinated.
Go ahead, Red.
So, hold on.
Go ahead.
So
Oh, go ahead, Nick.
there's a lot of great ideas around here. I'm not looking to battle with anybody. She's on the right track. Who in here buys soda? Stop buying it. Who in here goes to Starbucks? Stop going to Starbucks.
No.
Who in here goes to the grocery store and buys fruit that has plastic that can't be recycled? Stop buying it. So in order to stop doing these things, you have to, I don't want to say convince, but you have to educate people as to why. Because system affects systems. Like, I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Evelyn.
Evelyn was saying earlier about when your money goes down the supply chain, well, all these things are connected. And we should be grateful for why the lights are on right now, because there's people working in the background making this happen. Just like how all this food came together, there was people in the background making this happen. Just like how I got here, there's things that went along the industrial revolution that made this happen. Now it's about finding that turning point and figuring out what is better for us to start doing, riding bikes, So there's certain things that people need to start doing, like stop buying soda, because you are bringing up the Koch brothers. Stop buying, and Coca-Cola controls a lot of things. So that's one way to do it, but it's about educating a lot of people that support these products that are pushing up these companies that in turn don't do good things for us down the road.
Rev, I want to hear from you because you're like, you're still holding your cup. But to build on what Nick was saying, during the civil rights era, one of the most effective things that happened was boycotting. Boycotting works, right? So as soon as the collective stopped spending their money, then those organizations and policies started to change, right? So if we collectively said, hey, as Nick said, we're going to stop buying soda. As Sabrina was saying, and we're going to start riding our bikes. We're going to find alternative ways of transportation, right? Then the powers that be are like, oh, this is a problem. We're losing profits. And we get used to doing it the other way. Like, you know what? We actually didn't need this. But jump in the rep. I mean, we have a model that actually worked. Boycotting worked in the civil rights era. Voting with your dollars.
So boycotting ultimately was successful. Okay, ultimately. Not to say that, just like, oh, we boycott, boom, it was changed. It was a long process. It was drawn out. It was not pretty. It was not comfortable. All right, here's the thing. With each and every one of us in this room right now, each and every one of us in this county, in this state, in this country, in the world, we all stand on a three-legged table. All right. So you pull a leg out like soda, fruits wrapped in plastic, your memory foam mattress and all of these things. It's all, like Nick said, it's all connected, right? One hand washes the other, right? You pull a leg out, that table's gonna fall over. The thing is, what's the substitute for the soda, for the Starbucks, for your plastic, wrap individual banana, like, which is ridiculous, but it happens anyway. What's the substitute there? Because as much as we would like to shout and rant and rave and be that stereotypical hippie that we see in the movies, it's not gonna happen. We're creatures of comfort, you know what I'm saying, and we love our comfort. I'm sorry, we are addicted to pleasing our flesh. Nobody's gonna suffer willingly, just because, like, oh, this is what's best for, the country, the city, the state, the whole. Like, no, let's be realistic about it, right? Nobody's going to do that willingly. So during the civil rights era, there was a substitute, to those buses. because nobody's going to walk, 20, 30 miles to get to their job. Some of them did, but there was substitutes as well. Those substitutes was the community coming in and busing each people around. There were cars, there were cars that would come and pick people up and stuff like that. So there were substitutes.
But that's
And
your pain, right?
Yeah.
It was hard.
Yeah.
Their feet were bleeding because they were walking miles back and forth to work. It was dangerous because of sundown towns.
But
they were carpooling.
But hold on, but we're talking about a different age. We're talking about a different time and a different mentality. This is something I try and get people to realize, like when we do our Bible studies, right? Like we're dealing with a different, dealing with people with different mentalities, different culture, different time period. You know what I'm saying? They're not, they're people are people, but they're not equivalent to us because, the situations that they lived in were of that time. So the situations that, made the civil rights, movement successful doesn't exist right now. Right now, we've had a disconnect in society where you have social media and, just this whole individualistic, mindset that have drawn people away from one another rather than bring them closer to one another. And so because you have this, just to say like, hey, let's go and boycott and do this and that, like, yeah, it sounds good. And, 50 years, 60 years don't sound like a long time ago, but it really was. This was a whole different age, a different mindset. You look out in the world today and you see young men walking around with their pants around their ankles daggone near, right? But that's the culture and the mindset that we live in today, where 60, years ago, you still had young men walking around in suits. They were marching in slacks and button-up shirts and so forth. So we live in a different time.
Let me push back on that because
Go ahead.
Under that logic, we've had the Civil War, right? That was a different age. We had World War I, a different age, right? We had World War II. We had, we got our current conflict now, right? So yes, it isn't what it was. What we're dealing with, Ukraine and Russia and the United States and globalization, which is a big one, right? We're so tied now internationally that any little thing affects us. And so while it wasn't that, we have our own uniqueness. And so in that uniqueness, what is our tipping point, right? In the civil rights era, boycotting because it was so bad, I'm going to walk till my feet bleed. I'm going to take 6 hours to get back and forth, whatever it is. I'm a carpool. I'm putting myself in danger because it's a sundown town. Today, what is that catalyst? What is that thing where it's like no more, as Sabrina was saying?
I just told you.
What?
It's our comfort. Once that,
it's their comfort. So what's our comfort?
No, I mean that literally. It's our comfort. You know what I'm saying? We've gotten addicted to the fast life, the fast pace, the microwave society. Once that's threatened, once, our individualistic mindset is threatened, where, it's not like back then it was, okay, this affects the whole. And so as a community, like, okay, this affects the whole, I'm going to get involved. Where now it has to be, this affects, the individual. And then just, okay, so take for example, right? And we look at the 2020 Black Lives Matter movement, right? That galvanized, a nation, it galvanized the globe because we had marches worldwide, right? But what was happening was there was people seeing that this affected their individuality. This is, one, we already know that, this type of discrimination and racism is global, right? It's not just homegrown. And that's why we seen stuff global. And you seen like in each country, you seen them like, hey, they had their own George Floyd that they could identify. Like George was like the global face, but at the same time, underneath that, they had their own, George Floyd experiences that they can, point to and say, okay, this could be me, right? You know what I'm saying? So they could self-identify. It became an individual thing. And so that's what has to be at stake as far as
you're proving your example there, right?
Yeah, but okay, go ahead.
No, you're proving your example. So with that, right, we had a perfect storm. because that happened in a time when everyone was locked down in their homes, right? And they're frustrated.
Mhm.
And so you have this perfect storm that allowed that to happen.
Mhm.
We're past that storm now,
Mhm.
right? And to your own point, right? Police brutality, is actually up since George Floyd.
Oh, yeah.
It hasn't declined.
Mhm.
So again, and I'm gonna bring you into the conversation, Rob, so everyone gets a chance to speak. What is that thing? Because it wasn't George Floyd. It wasn't COVID. It's not the Ukraine-Russia conflict, right? What is it going to have to be? What more in our comfort has to be taken away? More and more people are becoming homeless every single day. More and more people, our life expectancy is shortening, right? So
Over 50% of the people in this country are one paycheck away from homeless.
So what is it?
But
What do you guys think that's going to be?
That is the thing. It's just about hitting the critical number. Like once the mass, once it's like the old saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. What needs to happen is already happening. It's just about it reaching its critical mass point where that last one is just say, okay, boom, and that's enough. That's gonna set off the powder keg or whatever, right? So what needs to happen is already happening. It's just it needs to reach, a sufficient mass in order for the catalyst, to take effect.
And then what?
So Rob, let me ask you this. What do you think, this is all speculation, what do you think that critical mass is? And whatever that critical mass is, if we give it an unknown variable X, once we hit that critical mass, do we go too far and we can't rebuild from that?
Well, I think that, as you said, the critical mass, the housing situation may push it there. The economy and the inflation that is rampant right now will definitely push it there. I would say on a level of other things, as I've heard you all speak about electric cars and everything, Washington passed a bill that by 2030, that's all they're gonna sell. That's gonna push it there. Because if you at 2030, you tell me I gotta go buy an electric car and it's $75,000, well, I guess it's gonna be the Shoe Leather Express because I can't pay $75,000.
Or it's just gonna make used vehicles
that
are not electric even.
Well, yeah, but then they push the whole system to support those electric cars. So at some point, I'm not gonna be able to get gas. I'm not gonna be able to get a fossil fuel. It doesn't matter if I have a gas run car or not.
And I'm not hearing that they're pushing public transit and improving public transit to match the people who won't be able to buy $75,000 cars either.
No, I'm not saying that.
No, I'm saying that I'm not hearing that they're talking about improving the public transit so that becomes an option for people, which isn't now.
Yeah, I mean, Kitsap Transit is doing their part with, we've got some electric buses at the moment. But look, when you've got 4 electric buses in your entire fleet, that's enough for you to go I've got the bypass word of, hey man, we're doing our part.
Actually, in fairness to them, they're doing the best they can to improve their fleet all the time. They got good people there. I've actually worked with them, but they are also funding strained. They do what they can do with what they got.
I understand that, but everybody's funding strained.
Absolutely.
And that speaks back to the other points of what you were speaking about, a universal basic income. Okay, I understand it. You say it's tested in 29 countries. Not a one of those countries is the size of America.
No.
Not a one. So how do you support it in this country? How do you keep the inflation from going rampant from what we've seen in this pandemic with everybody getting a stimulus check? Okay, and then how do you get people out of their house to go do something? Because I've got $3,000 or $4,000 a month free. Why do I need to get off my couch? Now you've got a country of lazy people.
So,
and that is a generalization, I understand, because there are people that will always go out and work. But there
actually,
are
the vast majority will go out and work, but you're right, because it's part of our culture of working jobs that we hate to pay the bills. But and if you had a chance to not work and have money coming in, you'd stop working because your whole experience with work is I'm doing something I hate to pay the bills.
Well, again, you look out there right now, there's a help wanted sign in every window, in every business, everywhere in this country. Due to this pandemic, okay? And I understand $15 an hour, Marwan, you've made this point numerous times. That's not enough to pay rent in this country, okay? But these
Unless
people
you
are
have 4 or
women.
5 people into one small house, which is what my daughter's dealing with right now.
I understand that too. But if you're in a situation where you have a housing voucher or you have something else like that, you don't have that option.
Mhm.
That option is off the table. You will be with you and your family. That's the only people on that voucher, and you will take care of it. Now, the voucher is outpriced by almost every apartment that you can find.
Yeah.
But
So I'm not disagreeing with you, by the way.
I'm not trying to be combative.
Yeah.
But again, you have all these jobs. You have people that are not interested at all in learning a actual trade. Okay. And that is also part of a society that was created. And I can speak to this from my generation, from the time I went to high school. Go to college, get a degree, get into a job, make a lot of money.
World's greatest scam.
Okay. But that is what is fed you.
Mhm.
So you have people in my position. I grew up in a family. My dad had a skilled trade. My dad worked for Ford Motor Company. It was a millwright. He worked there for 45 years. I got out. I joined the Navy. I was a sonar technician. I got out of the military. I said, I don't want to work on electronics. I became a carpenter, and I've done that for 30 years. It's a skilled trade, and there's no kids coming up. I mean, my son knows how to be a carpenter because he's my son, and he came to work with me, and he learned these things. But without these trades, where's our country going?
I'm not as a matter of fact, I completely agree with you on that. But what I've been saying all along is we're at a starting point. Okay. And I want to go back to addressing something that he said earlier. We are at a starting point, and the discussions have to happen now where we start deciding where we're going to go and how to get there. Because if you think a politician's going to figure this out for you, think again. When have they ever? It's going to be us coming together and talking about this doesn't stand. We need to change it. But then again, we ask how we're going to change it. And what Rev was saying is true. And I'm going back to the Ku Klux Klan gas station for a moment.
I'm never gonna live that one down, bro.
So I just wanted to say when you go back to the civil rights movement, yeah, the Ku Klux Klan gas station was using the gas to burn your ass.
Yeah.
And that's one of the drivers that happened back in the civil rights movement. People were lynching Black people. They were burning them. They were doing heinous things.
They still are.
I know, but
it's still happening.
But a lot more then, and a lot more openly than now.
Yeah, I'm with you.
No,
I would beg to disagree.
Well,
it's still openly happening right now.
And I will still be corrected on that.
Huh?
Crosses burning in people's yards and Poulsbo within the last year.
So yeah, and these are things we have not changed. And the way we change them is come together and talk about it and finally get to a place where we're all freaking human beings. But we can't wait for somebody else to do it for us. We have to have these conversations. And it cannot be a revolution. Let me just say what I always say to people. Revolution's core word is revolve. You know what happens? You have a revolution, the same freaking structure happens at the top again when it all settles out. And we start all over again with the same cyclical problem. We have to evolve. We have to evolve intentionally.
That sounds good, but Americans aren't that smart, Mark. I like to think, a little bit more realistic, whether that's being pessimistic or optimistic, in whichever case it may be. I'm going to, try and be very realistic about it. A couple of things. So first, there was some, and I do agree, there was some people that took advantage of, the stimulus checks and, I'm not going to work or whatever. But what do they keep calling it? The Great Migration or the great I quit or whatever they call it. Everybody walking away from their jobs. Wasn't really so much built around, the fact that the government was giving out money, because let's be realistic, the money that they gave
much.
Exactly. Wasn't enough to, really affect, much. The thing is, people took advantage of the opportunity to quit, and say, you know what, I'm done, because the rat race it's tiring, and they saw opportunity for a break, and that's where you see people like going away. You see people reluctant to return because they look at the numbers and they say, okay, this isn't enough to, for me to survive in, and I'm going to be stressed and, unhappy and unhealthy and so forth. So, why? Just, uh so that on that, the thing is, moving forward, and so I know Marwan likes to always talk about tangibles or whatever, right? The tangibles will present themselves in the midst of, saying the movement. It's gonna happen, whether it's a revolution or not, it's gonna happen. Saying society is, especially American society, is well overdue for, a change. Things cannot continue on the path. It's not sustainable, at all. And so you're going to see what happens is, people are going to revolt when we hit that critical mass. I forget what I wanted. It was something in particular I wanted to touch on. It'll come back to me with all the talking. I lost my train of thought, but I'll let it go for right now. It'll come back to me.
So, Mark, we need to wrap it up because we're going on 3 hours. Our show is usually an hour.
So I just wanted to say the next point, support system. So in the Great Walk-Off, and people have left their jobs, there's consequences that have happened along the way. And a lot of the people have left their jobs because they did look at the numbers and they go, why am I working a job that I hate? And my life is at risk for not enough money to pay my bills. And so they're looking for alternative systems. And this is not me just talking. It's pretty much out there. People are starting to live together and pool their money, create communities. That's a big push on that. There's a tipping point happening on that right now. And that means that houses are now empty. That people walked away from their mortgages to find different ways of going.
Jump in.
Yeah. Okay. This is what I want to, tell everybody. Don't think that our government is unaware of what's looming, what's finna happen. It's, this big, movement, whatever you want to call it, revolution or whatever. They are slowly implementing, changes to prepare for it, So they're preparing, our government is actively preparing for a civil war. If you look at a lot of the states, they're in our state just recently, Governor Inslee just recently signed a bill limiting the size of magazines to 10 rounds, right? This has nothing to do with mass shootings or anything else, and this whole democratic push, for weapon bans and all of this legislative talk that they try and put it around, shootings or whatever. That is absolutely not the case. This is because of what's happening in society, because they're allowing American oligarchs and the Russian oligarchs and all these other oligarchs, to take advantage of the people. They know that you can only push a person into a corner, for so long or so far before they fight back. And that is what's on the horizon. You look at, let's take, for example, I forget his name. They got weird names over there in Russia, but one of their oligarchies. Yeah, I know, right? Right.
Too many consonants in the
But they own, like, one of them bought one of the football clubs over in England, right? But you have public dollars over there helping support that England football field, soccer team or whatever. And this oligarchy that's a billionaire, that has the money, could do it on his own. They're taking advantage of that. You have like the Oakland Raiders. They went down to Las Vegas. I was there when they was doing the whole
Los Angeles first and then Las Vegas.
Yeah, doing the whole push about the stadium. Over $600 million, that the city of Las Vegas itself put in towards building that stadium. Well, while at the same time, you had a shortage of teachers. You had a teaching crisis, pretty much, where they would take anybody with a bachelor's. They were rampant like one of the worst places to send your kids to school. I'll tell you that, just flat out. And they're sitting here arguing over money that's going to go towards the stadium. And they're saying, hey, let's tap these casinos and put some money into the school. The governments know what's happening, you know what I'm saying? And they're playing the game, and they're just, people are just, it's coming, and they know it's coming. I'm gonna put it there because I'm gonna start ranting.
All right, so we gotta come to a hard
Yeah.
Mark, because you will go down another rabbit.
I know. I'm gonna stop.
This is the takeaway that I want folks to take away from this, from today. There hasn't been a time when these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people have sat in a room together and had a conversation. That really is the point, right? Is coming together and having these conversations. Many of us have never either had the voice to talk about these conversations or to even think about those things, right? Like Mark says, we the people, this is an opportunity. And so things to me are not going to go quick, right? Just because we're coming together. It's hard enough to already get us to come together, but we all have these things that are important to us. We all have these different perspectives that are on our minds.
All these pieces to the puzzle.
So being able to come and have divergent thought, have some similarities, but also have some differences, right? Like we don't agree on UBI, but being able to be respectful, listen, active listen, and think about it, and then hopefully build on the tangibles, like I say, and trying different things, but actually coming together. So understand those that are out here watching now or watching later, that this is going to be a slow process. And some of the things you're going to hear over and over again, because people are now in a space where they can actually dialogue, to have that conversation. There are things that I learn from Nick every time we have a conversation about emergency management, the perspectives from Evelyn and Terry. Some of those things were new, and it's like, you know what? And it took the whole conversation down a different path, which is what is needed.
So
right?
don't
That's
forget
the
to tell them to
diversity.
bring their voices to the conversation.
That is the diversity of thought. And so, yes, we do want you to bring your voice to the table. We're going to do this every fourth Wednesday. Of course, every Wednesday at 12 p.m. is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. This is how that change is going to happen. If we're looking for, if we're waiting on that catalyst to happen to get to critical mass, we can wait for it to happen, and then it happens. If it's inevitable, then we can try to be as prepared as possible as it's going to happen. And I think right now, maybe that is the best we can do. Now, I don't have any outro music today because we are in New Horizon Ministries, but I do want to thank every single one of you for coming today and spending the last 2.5 hours with us, almost 3 hours with us. It's been very informative. I love the community that we had, and I look forward to doing more of this in the future. So for everyone here, I am R1 Cameron. This is the Conduit, and we will see you next time.